run late. What the heck?
I know.
That's the kind of show we have.
I did get us on iTunes though.
I saw that.
So I just did an anchor this morning and uploaded one episode. I think I'm going to cut the other episodes up. I just wanted to see how easy it was.
Oh, it's
to transfer
it's cake.
To transfer to Anchor and stuff like that. So it's not. But I couldn't believe it was February when we started. I didn't think it was that long ago.
Yeah, it does not. I think since we're doing it so consistently, I think that's why it doesn't feel like it's been that long.
Yeah, that's a lot of hours. So, anyway, so we all survived the weekend. Did you hear back from your approval?
Nothing past. I'm in the queue.
Oh, that's good.
Been incessantly checking my email and the approval tracker that they have.
Now, how many Kylos does the Ohio have?
A handful, not that many, but apparently, so I posted a picture in the Garrison Academy.
Yeah.
And one of the first comments was, "Wow, I can't wait to finally have a Kylo back
nice.
trooping." So either they're not active or they just don't troop as Kylo.
You don't see that many Kylos around lately, because I think a lot of people went to the other Kylo and then they weren't happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we got E-Girl with us tonight already.
Howdy, yeah, we got our one.
Good to see you.
Yeah, I will say this though: we did just have a brand new Revenge of the Sith Vader approved today. So
nice.
Now with the 501st, do they have the pre-app team and then the application team? Because with the Mandalorians, they've really increased the effort and energy to have costumes reviewed by several groups and tweaks done to them before they go to the formal and official application team, or what do they call acceptance team? I think is what they're, or approval team. Sorry, the approval
I think it
team.
depends on Garrison. I think it really depends on the Garrison.
Okay.
Like I think the a lot of times, at least in ours, the GML has final say, but he might, like, if, let's say he doesn't know Vader. Let's say the GML is just not familiar with the Vader. He might like talk to someone who has a Vader costume and they look at the CRL together. In theory, when I joined, it was just one woman. She looked at your costume, she looked at the CRL, and she would get back to you in 48 hours. Boom, you're in.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
yeah, the first email that I got could take up to 1 to 3 weeks. So,
yeah.
But Ohio has 2 GMLs, and they will either send back notes like, "Hey, fix this, add another, send us more pictures," or they will send it out for detachment approval. So then it would go to like the First Imperial Stormtrooper detachment, the Sith Lord detachment, what have you.
Oh, so your GML doesn't just approve it then?
If they don't, I think if they don't know the costume well enough, they'll send it out. Because like we've got one in currently. I mean, granted, it was from August of last year. It was a 327th Star Corps trooper that says requires detachment approval. So.
Yeah, well, some of the really like out there ones are tough for them to know. I know our one GML, Andrew, he had like 20 costumes. Like he knew a lot of them. You know, he was like he had a lot of costumes.
That's incredible. So speaking of the weekend, Mike, there are 2 things that I absolutely positively need to say out loud. Number one, thank you. It was absolutely positively fantastic, other than the crazy sunburn that I got on the back of my neck.
God, the heat. I felt so bad. I was like, this is like the worst heat I think I've ever had.
The heat was fine. I wasn't paying attention to where I was positioned. And when I got in the car to go home, I just raised my hand up and I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt tomorrow.
Yeah.
So huge thank you. And I must say that you were the equivalent of a human hummingbird. The whole day you were flitting from over here to over there, and the smile on your face was immense. You know, you're hanging out with your daughter and her college friends, you're spending time with John and I and our stuff, and and Marcus and Sean and all these other. It was absolutely fantastic to see you in such a state of joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike. That was one of the best times I've had in a while.
Well, thank you. I had an awesome time. I mean, and watching Marcus and Sean work, my God, like Sean brings his, and I'm like, I'm just going to throw mine in the trash. You know what I mean?
Well, he brought like a mini little factory. I mean, he's 16
yeah.
different glues, and the other thing that I'm just so thankful for and I'm impressed by is every person that came to the party had something to offer, something to give, something to share. And Marcus was kind of joking around saying, "Oh, I thought it was like stone soup. Everybody brings something to contribute to the mix." And I'm just glad that I happened to have a bottle of CA glue in the car, or else I would have had nothing to contribute.
Yeah, same with me. If I didn't have that massive roll of leather, I would have also had nothing.
Well, yeah. I mean, I overestimated our skill set, but I had a good time, and I think everyone did. Like even Zoe's friends who didn't have a clue what they were doing, they had a blast. So
yeah, it was an incredible weekend.
And you got to see Lancaster County, which is good or bad, depending on.
Yeah, we need more events like that in our lives.
Right.
Yeah. So
I was telling everyone when I got home, moving a little bit further east doesn't sound too bad right now.
Well, that's what we always tell Toga. Toga lives in West Virginia. We're like, man, you should just move because his family's in Jersey. Just move halfway between Jersey and there. Lancaster County is, a place to be. Because Marty lives like 45 minutes to an hour north of me, and a bunch of guys live set like, we need to just buy a whole cul-de-sac and just. I ain't moving. I got too many work in my basement. I'm sorry. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Well, your place could be the anchor. Yours could be the anchor point.
Yeah. But no, it was. I had a good time. I forgot how much not fun it is folding up inflatable Vader though.
Mm.
That was because you have to deflate every piece with a deflator. So it's literally like pumping it up but backwards. Or it won't fit in the tote. So, because I was like, why don't I take this to events? And then when I was putting it away, I was like, oh yeah, now I know why I don't take this to events.
This is the reason. I've just really recently rediscovered why.
Well, Zoe's friends got a kick out of it because she told them, well, you'll know which house it was. And
that's all she said. You'll know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it's this one with the 19-foot Darth Vader in the front yard.
Yeah, that's my Burger King. That's as close to an inflatable Falcon I get, unless someone wants to trade up.
And you haven't heard back from them yet.
I have not heard back from anybody. I was actually emailing Lucasfilm people yesterday for Zoe's podcast. So I threw a couple in for us, but I don't think we have enough. That's what made me put the stuff on Anchor. I was like, I got to start building a backlog of something. She was doing all her internships, so like for DreamWorks and all this other stuff. So I was feeling motivated.
Yeah, one of Demetrius's friends just recently got a job with Skywalker Sound.
Nice. Yeah, well, Zoe applied for one in December, but she wasn't qualified. But they gave her a second interview on it. So,
that's cool.
But she was honest with them, which was nice. Like she said, look, I don't know what any of this is, and they said, okay, well, let's give you a second interview anyway. So,
hey, got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So. Speaking of starting somewhere, we had mentioned that tonight we're going to talk about the sequel trilogy. And where do you want to start with that?
Well, maybe we should start when we first heard there was going to be sequels.
I can remember vividly what I was doing.
Like, think about, I remember when I heard Disney bought Lucasfilm, and I had a mixed reaction.
What were the two sides of the reaction?
Well, the one thing, it was just, I think it was right around, was that right around when Iron Man came out? If I remember correctly.
2012 was after Avengers came out.
Oh, maybe,
It
okay.
was October 30th of 2012.
I don't know, but whatever it was, that side of me was like, well, look, they're doing really good by Marvel. You know what I mean? That was the plus side. But then the I was worried that they were going to take the old movies and kind of shelf them and restart them. I had nothing to. That was just my, like, I think I heard it when I was driving to work one day. I was like, oh shit, you know.
For me, it was a combination of sadness and excitement. The sadness comes from the place of where George felt like that was his best bet, and I think part of that was because of the reactions to the prequel trilogy. You know, so many folks gave him so much crap about the prequel trilogy, even more than they gave him about the original trilogy. And I remember at one point, I don't. This is not a direct quote. This is just a general recollection of what he said, but it was something to the effect of, "Why should I keep making these if everybody hates them so much?"
Right.
You know, so it kind of made me sad that he felt like that was the best option for him if Star Wars was going to continue. And then the excitement was, man, oh man, Disney could do some incredible things with this stuff, and hopefully they do it well.
Yeah, I remember, like I said, I can remember the day vividly. Because I was sitting, I was 13 years old at the time. I was pumped. There was going to be more live action Star Wars. Because, I mean, at that time, it had been 7 years since Revenge of the Sith came out. And the closest thing that we got to new Star Wars between that was still 6 years beforehand with the Clone Wars movie.
Right.
But yeah, I remember I was sitting on the couch playing Assassin's Creed 3. My dad yelled over to me. He said, "Hey, we're getting new Star Wars movies." And then we sat down and read the article that Disney had bought him out, and I was excited.
Well, I was excited about the part because I had lucked out and got to go to Star Wars Weekend. You know, at Disney by accident. We went to Star Wars Weekend. I think the first time we went, it was before Disney owned them. And the second time we went was after Disney owned them, if I remember correctly. And so I was excited about that part because that was pretty awesome. When they used to put all the Mando stuff in that one cafe back there. Oh, yep. I wish I would have taken more pictures of that.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they don't have something like that, considering the other events that Disney does, whether it's the Festival of the Arts or the Flower and Garden Show or the Wine and Cheese or whatever it is that they do at Epcot. I mean, they could literally do a Star Wars weekend once a weekend, every month.
Well, I wonder once they get the Marvel campus running and once they get a bunch of other things going, I wonder if they'll come back around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that Marvel return from Universal they don't have a Marvel campus in Florida yet, do they?
Nope, not yet. The closest that they have is the new ride at Epcot.
Yeah.
So they don't have a full campus. They just have that new ride that's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. But I got excited. I mean, and then when we started getting the what was it, the first trailer? That first, when Finn's head pops up.
Yeah. I actually just went back and I don't remember why. Oh, because I was showing my because I've got my Kylo tattoo.
Yeah.
And one of my coworkers asked me where it was from, and I pulled up the teaser trailer that we got. You got to remember, we got the teaser for The Force Awakens 13 months before the movie even came out.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I was actually just watching that the other day.
The trailer or the whole movie?
Just the trailer, because I was at work at the time. I wish I could watch the whole movie at work.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, that was. I just remember when he kicks the lightsaber on, that like side profile shot, and the Force Awakens, and then so just to jump to that, the anticipation. That's what got. So, at the time, Zoe was trooping as Sabine, and that so it'll be her 7-year anniversary this September, I think, of her podcast. And around October is when Lizzie joined the podcast. And it was all anticipation coming up to The Force Awakens. You know, like I remember when we went and saw The Force Awakens. I mean, we saw it 2 and 3 times a weekend for about a month.
That's awesome.
Until I got my credit card bill. I was like, who the hell spent $750?
Yeah, I remember I saw The Force Awakens twice opening night. That was the first time that I did a double feature for the Star Wars movies. Actually, it was the only time I did a double feature. Every other time I did a triple feature on opening night.
Well, see, that was a big time because if I remember correctly, my sound go out? No,
you're still here.
Okay, the Battlefront came out. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Then, that within the week, Battlefront came out. Zoe got invited to Manhattan for a premiere of Wired magazine that went into the archives and took a bunch of pictures. Right, so she couldn't go. So me and Marty went. That was like a Tuesday. Like Battlefront was a Monday night. We were up till like 3 a.m. Then because we just showed up at GameStop. I wore my Stormtrooper. Marty drove his R2 in, and another friend of ours went as a AT-AT driver. You know, we just walked in, picked up, like R2 was holding my little stub for Battlefront, and then we did that, and then we that Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday we went to Manhattan, and we didn't get home till 6 a.m. from that party, and then that Wednesday night we had a pre-showing because we were trooping it. We had a midnight showing of it. So that whole week it was just like, and then we went and saw it a couple times that weekend. Like that first weekend, it was amazing. And the first time I saw it with the girls, I literally watched the girls probably more than I watched the movie.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for the sequel trilogy just for, reigniting Star Wars. Whether that be good press or bad press. Because, I mean, obviously, they're very polarizing movies.
Yeah.
But,
and it's funny that you even have the need to say that they're polarizing movies, and not for their content. It's not like they're extreme stories or anything like that. They're polarizing because of the different factions of fandom. Which is different than, let's say, I don't know, a controversial movie about murder or whatever.
Yeah. One, and I might be slightly immune to that, the other fans, only because I've had to deal with that with Zoe for so long. Like I've dealt with that type of fan towards different people since she was like 4 years old. You know what I mean? So we've kind of just know how to deal with them. Because for Zoe it used to be, and I think what hurt a lot of the people was, it used to hurt Zoe's heart when she had to go to the guys section to buy a Star Wars t-shirt when she was a kid. And it's technically the same shirt, but for her, and I understood that, like I know people make fun of it. Well, you can just go to the boys section, but you're saying something,
Yep.
So we were kind of ready for that nonsense, I guess you would call it.
Mm-hmm.
But the first one, honestly, I don't think the first one got any bad press for a little while. I think the worst it got was people said it was repeating New Hope. Which again, if you're going to repeat one of the most successful movies in history, is that really a bad thing? Doing it right.
Right. Yeah, I never understood that argument. It's like A New Hope is one of the greatest films of all time. That is a consensus. We know it's a good story. Why wouldn't you want it again with a slightly different take? I mean, that's just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah. No, I know.
Well, I think some of the other pushback was you've got Ray, who, what's the phrase that they use? They call it Mary Sue or something.
Oh yeah.
Which I still to this day don't even really know what that means. but how can this person without any training be so powerful and all that kind of
And then you
nonsense?
say, are you talking about Luke?
Yeah, yeah. By that logic, Anakin is a Mary Sue. Luke is a Mary Sue. Rey is a Mary Sue. Kylo, any of the Jedi, by that standard, is a Mary Sue. And I think, it's one of those things. It's because she's a woman. It's not the status quo for Star Wars. And you've got some of these fans who can't accept that.
And she was a good character. I mean,
Mhm.
like honestly, they set her up as a strong character in two ways. They set her up climbing around in all the innards of a Imperial Star Destroyer, being a scavenger. So she wasn't like a princess in a tower, not getting her hands dirty. And they actually wrote some small kids books. Zoe bought them, and we've got them for Zoe when she was little. But like where she used to, she found like a flight simulator somewhere and learned how to fly, But she never wanted to leave the planet because she was worried her family was going to come back. Like she wouldn't change her hairstyle, she wouldn't change her clothes because she was worried her family would miss her and stuff like that. So, but that was a good character. I mean, and like my favorite scene is when Kylo calls the saber and it goes flying to her.
Mhm.
Like, that's my favorite. That's one of my favorite Star Wars scenes of all time. It like teared me up because I knew what my daughters just got to see.
It's like the passing of the baton.
Yeah, and it's no less moving. If I had sons, it would be no less moving for my sons because I would have raised my sons that it doesn't matter, what gender your hero is. But coming from a generation of mine where I'm an old white guy and all the heroes were white guys, it does make a big difference after a while.
Yeah, I think the sequels, the characters specifically, get a lot of unnecessary hate. It's just people don't like it because it's different.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not what they're used to, and I stand by that.
and I think that hate is not so much about the characters. I think part of it is about who's portraying the characters. Let's think of all the folks that got the hate. So you had Rey got hate. She's a woman. Finn got hate because of his race. Then we go into the other movies. You've got Rose Tico who got hate because of
Mm-hmm.
race. Even extending to the most recent Disney Plus series, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
Yeah.
Moses Ingram got hate because of her race. So not even about, she got hate before the show even was shown.
I know.
So for folks to claim to dislike something because of those kind of things, those are not the people that I want to hang out with. Those are not the
Right.
people that I want to get into in a philosophical conversation with, because from my perspective, their quote unquote arguments aren't arguments. They're just mean and harsh and unnecessary.
Yeah, and speaking of Riva, just real quick before we get too far off topic, I do hope that in very short order of time, we start to see some more appreciation for her character, because a lot of the hate that she has gotten thus far, totally unwarranted. I thought Riva was one of the best characters from the Kenobi show.
Well,
Yeah.
there's already articles out there talking about the writer of the original Obi-Wan movie had a different story, and folks are reading that stuff, the little bits that they get in these articles, like, well, that should have been the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Why didn't they do that? Why did they let Reva survive? It's just, how about you just enjoy what you got?
Right.
Because even if we were to go back in time to the original drafts of Star Wars, those movies would have been vastly different if they had gone with George's original ideas.
Have you ever seen the comic book of those?
Oh,
I
goodness,
have.
yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic.
Yeah, but it would not have been a good movie. It would have probably went on, if it was done like the comic book did it. It would have been a good movie that I don't know if we would be still talking about in 2022.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say. However, it would have absolutely positively have been different. That is for
Yeah,
sure.
but I'm saying it didn't have the visuals that it's like they cleaned it up. Either George did, or maybe because of Ralph McQuarrie's art, or maybe a little bit of both. They streamlined it and made it flashy enough with a good story. Where the other one still had a good story, but it wasn't really flashy. It was dialogue heavy, you know, and I don't know if it would have held up.
And that's why I kind of giggle when I hear people say that one of the reasons the Kenobi show is so much better than the sequel trilogy is because there was one director and they had a plan. Well, they never really had a solid plan with any of these. They went through, different versions of the scripts
Yeah.
and things along those lines. So the movie that showed up on screen is not necessarily the first thing that they put together.
When I've
For
said
a
this, yeah, I've
go
said
ahead. I'm
it
sorry.
many times too, and I think I even said it this past weekend. I am so glad that the prequels or the sequels were not like a Star Trek sequel. I am glad it wasn't Old Man Luke, Old Man Han, and older Princess Leia running around doing the same thing they did in their 20s. Like I think that would have been fan service, but it would have been terrible fan service.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Because that was one of my takes with the old Legends books. I liked some of them, but some of them were literally like Scooby Doo adventures.
Well, I think they were just trying to fill that void of nothing.
Yeah,
Because at the time when a lot of those expanded universe books were available, there wasn't movies, there wasn't the animated shows. So they were doing the best they could with what they had, and they were having fun doing it. I mean,
yep.
there's got to be what 100 or more expanded universe novels.
Oh, geez, I don't know. I watched. I've said this a million times. I watched George Lucas in an interview when I was younger, and he said none of his books count. So I was like, okay, good. I don't have to read them. I'm off the hook. No reading for me.
I've read some of them. I can't say I've read all of them. I've read some of them, and I've enjoyed the ones I've read.
I read a couple. Like when I drove truck, they would give us copies, and I would sit in my truck and read them while I was waiting for them to unload. But some of them, like I like the one with Shizor. What was that? Dark Empire, Shadows of the Empire.
Shadows of the Empire.
I like that one. But that was almost like a Rogue One type of, like a where they just took a couple lines from a movie and made an entire book out of it. Shadow of the Empire, you know. And I was
Well, I think
watching like the sequels. The sequels kind of also, um, they give us like those new characters. Like I liked Rose a lot, and and Finn. I was surprised that they didn't do more with those, and I was very disheartened when they got treated poorly because that's a mini series I want to see. Like I want to see Finn, you know, and I thought Finn was going to get a lot more, love.
well, I mean, if we compare the sequels to the original ones, there were your main characters, your Lukes and Hans and Vader, and there were a handful of other characters that didn't get. I mean, heck, look, Boba Fett.
Yeah,
Boba Fett, this guy who became hands down a fan favorite. He was on the screen for minutes, and it didn't diminish our appreciation or admiration or fan excitement about that guy. So I do find it interesting that folks will get all twisted that there wasn't more Rose, or they quote unquote didn't develop Finn more. I mean,
yeah.
how many other characters can we talk about from either the prequels or the sequels that are like that? I mean,
Well, I
how come
just
we haven't heard more about Dexter, Jetster, or Kitster?
that's true. Kidster, Kidster and Broom Boy.
Yeah, or
Kids
heck,
Broom
even
Boy.
Jar Jar Binks. We need more Jar Jar Binks stories.
Well, I did like what you said on your last podcast. I don't know who said it. I think it was you, Ken. That Jar Jar Binks give us, K2SO.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think sometimes we're in a hurry. We're in a hurry to judge, like this. I think the sequel's history, or Yeah, the sequels. I think history will be kinder to them than people are right now.
Oh goodness, yeah. And I
Because when I
I just
watch them, they're good movies to watch.
yeah, I
Like
hope it
even
doesn't
even
take as long though. I mean, if we look at the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and you could almost say that it is the renaissance of the prequels because they're doing so much to connect the current offerings to the prequels. And Attack of the Clones is 20 years old. I don't want to have to wait 20 years old until we can fully appreciate the sequel trilogy.
but don't you think the cycle's quicker now? Like the
Well, I think the cycle of creation is quicker, but I don't think, unfortunately, unlike the Kaminoans, we don't have the ability to speed up the aging process. So the childhood fans of the sequel trilogy, we can't make them adults faster.
yeah, that's
And I
true.
think that's what's happening now is you've got folks who are huge fans of the prequels as children are now coming of age and can buy stuff related to the prequel trilogy and voice their appreciation more forcefully or more loudly. But I don't, like I said, I don't want to have to wait 2 decades for lots of folks to stand up and link arms and say, you know, thank you for Rose Tico
Yeah,
and Maz Kanata.
I did see a couple Rose Ticos at Celebration, and I saw a bunch of Rays in all different versions and some. So there is a lot of love still for those characters.
Yeah, so actually, let's go to the Force Awakens. And John, you had
Okay.
mentioned that folks have said that it was a rehash or a replay of a New Hope. What are some of those things that would fall into that category of a repeat or a rehash of a New Hope?
Well, I mean, the big thing is you've got the you've essentially got what is the Death Star and Star Killer base. That's the number one thing that everyone goes to. It's we got to destroy this planet killing weapon.
Okay.
I think that is the big thing that everyone goes to.
Sand planet, desert planet to start.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what
I
else.
mean, it's they. Someone cut it scene by scene, but I think one thing, whether people like George Lucas's stuff or not, it is the poetry how he puts his movies together.
It's
It's
like
like
poetry, it
poetry, it
rhymes.
rhymes.
Huh? Yeah, but I mean, like his stories move a certain way. Like like with the music and all that kind of stuff, it moves a certain way. So it's just good story. It's just good storytelling. I mean, it's the backwoods farmer meets the wizard. This time the wizard was more like Han Solo, you know, um, for Ray, the wizard that she found. And I mean, they brought in R2, 3PO. Oh, man, you know, Chewie got a lot of love in that movie in Force
Mhm.
Oh
Awakens.
goodness, yeah. And I thought they did a great job bringing in Eunice as Chewbacca.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And he worked directly with Peter to get the physicality of that character down, and
Because I
did
think Peter was
a
in the
fantastic.
costume for a couple scenes.
Yes,
Yeah, I
I just
believe
don't
he was
think
in
I don't
one of
think
the
he carried
cockpit
I
scenes.
don't think he carried Finn though. I think that might have been Eunice.
No, and he also the Marty points out because um, Peter had a distinct stance due to his knee surgeries and stuff. So Marty would point out, hey, that's my local Chewbacca guy. I just talked to Marty. But yeah, like they give that and the 3PO love in the last one. No, was it the last one?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, Rise of
Yeah.
Skywalker.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that had one of the biggest parts for 3PO.
Yeah, the 3PO. And I know people didn't like the race in space on the second one, but I thought that was a good. I know people didn't like Canto Bite, but I thought Canto Bite was like kind of like it was sending a message that's exactly what George Lucas would have done. You know what I mean? Like to show, okay, look, there's all these wars. Someone's making money from both sides. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, and not even just that, but one of the things that George often did was he would have these scenes that were filled with all sorts of different species from across the galaxy, to show the diversity, to show the weirdness. I mean,
Yeah.
there's one thing that doesn't get said enough about Star Wars movies, and they're pretty weird if you really think about them.
Well,
I
yeah, and
mean,
the people, that's what I didn't understand. The people that didn't like the Canto Bight scene will go back to New Hope, and the Cantina scene's awesome. You know?
mhm.
Mhm.
And I think it is awesome, but I also think the Canto Bight scene was awesome too.
Yeah, and I would be one of the people that would argue that the Canto Bight scene is awesomer, just based on volume, just based on um, the lengths that they went to get all of those different creatures on screen. I mean, they had one creature that was inspired by Carrie Fisher's dog Gary. You know, they had they
Yeah.
had they had a turkey in a tuxedo. You know, so I mean that's weird. If you really think that's really really weird. You
Well, and
know,
it was also reminiscent of the party in Solo at the top of
yeah,
what's his name's ship, where you had like a half a person's head.
yep, the
You know,
decraniated. Yep.
the, you know. So, I mean, I mean, it was a good. I like the storyline. You know, um, and we went. So I think all of those, maybe not the Force Awakens, but the other two, we went out to eat after. We made it like a tradition. We'd go to this diner and take as many people as it wanted to, and we would record a podcast for Zoe's podcast after we saw it all. You know, and I think there were some people that were kind of speechless after the second one. I think because I don't
Yeah.
think they knew where it went and how it
Well,
stepped.
let's step back to the Force Awakens though, and think about the risks that Disney was willing to take on to put that movie out there. So that was the first movie without George's involvement. It
Yeah,
was inspired by a lot of his work, but he wasn't there. He wasn't on set. He wasn't. I don't even know if he was really consulted. I know the rumors I had heard is he had turned over story treatments
yeah,
for that movie, and Disney and J.J. Abrams chose not to use those story treatments to the degree that they could have been used. Um, and let's talk about the other big risk that only showed up in the very last moments of the movie, and that is that they had Luke Skywalker, billed as being in the movie, and he was in all of about what, a minute and a half.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and he just standing on a mountaintop and didn't say a single word.
yeah.
And that's the only bit of Luke Skywalker that you see in the whole film. Those are huge risks for a company that just paid 4 point something billion with a B
Yeah.
dollars for the ability to make these movies.
Well, they made a lot of that money back on that one.
Yeah, they made a fourth of that back on
Yeah,
that alone.
yeah. I mean, and they made a big chunk of it back just from me.
Well, we're all shareholders, in
Yeah,
Star
no,
Wars.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was, and then like the follow up with that, like we got like when we saw the Falcon, when that cover came off the Falcon and she was flying the Falcon, it was all beat up. Oh man, how good was that? Like, and I knew this is my only complaint about movies in general, and I haven't seen anyone do it since Batman '89. I want someone to make a movie that they feel so confident in it that they don't show you anything in the preview.
Mm-hmm.
Because Batman '89, they would not show you Michael Keaton in a suit. They would not show you the Joker. The one trailer just showed the Batmobile going over the road and the Joker laughing. That's it. And they trusted what they made. That's what I want. Because as much as it was nice to see Chewie were home in that thing, imagine if we would have seen that without knowing that.
Well, let's considering we have a connection to Kathleen Kennedy through our show. I mean, she's listening to it,
Right.
so we
She's
might
one
as
of the
well.
two.
Yeah, she's one of the two, so we might as well speak directly to her. Kathleen. So, as you are working with Taika on his next movie, and he would be a great person to do that kind of a trailer,
Yeah.
where you just have a few things, you show no thing about the story, and then boop. coming to theaters near you May 25th, such and such.
Well, I think Kenobi kind of did that. Not to the extent of Batman 89, but think about the 2 trailers that we got. All you knew, it was going to have Obi-Wan, he was going to be on the run from the Inquisitors, and Vader was in it in some capacity.
Yeah.
Oh, don't forget, you had Luke Skywalker too.
Yeah.
Also had Luke Skywalker.
They did pretty close to that in Kenobi, and they did pretty close to that in they did in The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian's the perfect example. Because they didn't show you anything really of him. They showed you all the clips came from the first couple minutes of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't show us Baby Yoda. What concerns it doesn't concern, I don't care really, but I liked Rogue One. You guys were talking about Rogue One. What I liked about Rogue One was I felt like the trailer didn't tell me anything because they didn't use half those shots. I know because of the reshoots and stuff. You know what I mean? Because there was no giveaway.
Well, that's because they'd given it away in 1977 when they released A New Hope,
right?
Or as they called it back then, Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Yeah. Speaking of not using half those shots, I've got an official poster of them running on the beach with the Death Star plans.
The different Death Star plans with that little cassette.
Yep. You know what's funny? What's funny about that poster? Is it a Toys R Us poster?
No, it was straight from a theater.
Okay, well, the Toys R Us poster came out for the toy release, and the face of the woman is not Jyn Erso. It's just a generic face because there were other people in the running to get that spot.
Well,
the girl who is playing She-Hulk in the new Marvel movie was rumored to be getting the Jyn Erso part.
Oh wow, that's pretty funny.
And if you look, because that poster used to hang in the back of my classroom, so I looked at it all the time. And it's just, that was back when they had toy releases at midnight, and we would show up and buy boatloads of toys. No more Toys R Us now.
Yeah, now it's just, hey, these are going to be out eventually, so go ahead and pre-order it, you schmucks.
Well, I do hope. So I know that the prequels. Well, if we go to the second one with Rose Tico, like I know a lot of people didn't like the bombers. I loved the bombers at the beginning. They reminded me of a George Lucas-esque type thing because he made all his ships were like somewhat World War II-ish. Like he took the old aerial footage, gun footage, and he tried to copy that. And when those bombers came, they had all this stuff that you're like, what is all that crap for? And they never explained it, which I love. Like you're like, couldn't you? And it was just, I just love that. I love that whole, Finn basically just having a rocket on the back of his ship, and BB-8 going down and fixing it.
So here's a silly question about The Force Awakens and toys. What are your impressions on Constable Zuvio?
Constable who?
Yeah, exactly, 100%. I remember when those toys came out.
He'll be the yak face in 20 years.
I can remember going out and getting the Constable Zuvio. This guy's going to be so important. Look how cool he is. And I don't think I ever saw him in The Force Awakens. I don't remember.
He wasn't in anything until the DVD came out and you saw the behind-the-scenes footage. You never saw him until March of 2016.
What would be nice is a Constable Zuvio miniseries.
Like a Cops?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's just
like Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yeah,
Zuvio, Constable Zuvio.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine what a constable would do on that planet because it looked like pretty much you just went and took crap from stuff and you sold it and got ripped off for Instafood. It didn't look like there was really. It looked like it was pretty cut and dry. Like the guy with the robotic arms, that she was dragging stuff. He got his arms chopped off because he stole something from our Uncard Pluck or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Or maybe he lost a fight with a Wookiee somewhere.
maybe.
I mean,
No,
I
there
have
was a whole
tendency to
set of
ripple
books.
info.
There's a whole set of books. Zoe used to tell me all that stuff, like, "Oh, did you know that guy?" You know, so she kept me well informed.
Well, even Baba Joe. I mean, Baba Joe. There was a big not a bait and switch, but I remember J.J. Abrams did a whole thing. I don't know if it was Maze or one of those kind of campaigns, and talked about Baba Joe, and then Baba Joe, you just see him in one scene, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love the fact that we know who Constable Zuvio is, and we know who Baba Joe is, and they did no thing really in any of the movies, and we still love them as they are.
That'll be the thing. Like 10, 15 years from now, there'll be some guys doing a podcast, and the first thing they'll say is, "Hey, did you know there was a character called Constable Zuvio?" And they'll pull out this toy, and it'll be in like a plexiglass, thing. This is worth $1,100 now, and it's the only, because all those went to like Goodwill and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I will say this, and I might be a little biased, but I think we can't get too far without talking about Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. I think he is pretty much across the board consensus, probably one of the best characters in the sequels.
Oh, definitely.
And I knew there was one promo shot where you see him without the mask, turned around with two of the First Order stormtroopers. When that promo picture came out, I think it might have been for Variety. But when that came out, I knew I was going to. That's essentially when I fell in love with his character, just because he had the look of a good villain.
Yeah.
And I think over 3 movies, he's in my top 5 for favorite Star Wars characters.
Now, are you saying that because of his performance or because of his slight resemblance to you?
Well, at the time, I didn't look so much like Adam Driver.
Well, I mean, we all have aspirational goals.
Good point. I don't know.
Yeah, you would make a dashing villain. I mean, let's just put it out there.
Well,
at a certain point in your life, you'll think you're Han Solo, and then I don't know what year it was when I grew a beard. I'm like, oh, God damn it, I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi now.
But yeah, I thought Adam Driver was a great pick for that character. And here's a silly question. Do you think he killed Han Solo, or do you think Han Solo killed Han Solo?
I think he killed Han Solo.
I think Harrison Ford killed Han Solo. Oh, you mean in the movie?
In the movie.
I think he killed Han Solo. I don't think. I think. I had a friend of mine that was all about, like, he thinks Han Solo pulled the blood. I don't.
So I'm not all about it, but let's walk down that path of those two possibilities. So, when they're standing on that bridge with no railing, because there's no such thing as space OSHA,
right?
One of the things and this is not, I apologize. This is me showing that I'm a fake fan and I don't have the quote nailed, but Kylo said, "I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Will you help me?" I really think Han Solo killed himself so that it would prevent Ben Solo from carrying that burden of knowing that he killed his own father.
See, I took it as, when I was watching it, there was light shining on him when they were talking, through that window or whatever.
Yep.
And I felt like he was leaning toward the light side, and in that darkness, he was ready to go. And then as soon as that darkness started to go past him and he wasn't in the light anymore, he reverted back to Kylo Ren. Like, I took it as more of like a symbol, I understand. I understand what you're saying. I think Solo thought he was going to get him back. He was going to get him back to his mother. And I do think they would have handled Kylo slightly differently had Carrie Fisher not passed away.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
I mean, they had that. You can't understate what that caused for the last movie, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my thoughts on that though are I the way I interpreted it is when you have that second pause between the struggle of Han holding the lightsaber and that just when they look at each other. I my personal thing is I think that Kylo sensed at that point where Han is like, I understand, I get it, do what you've got to do, because he didn't look afraid, he didn't look petrified, like, oh, he's not letting go of this, like I'm gonna die. I think he had accepted his fate at that point. So maybe a bit of column A, a little bit of column B. That's my take on it.
And I like that it wasn't explicit one way or the other.
Yeah.
Because another reason why I feel that Han killed Han comes back to what happened in The Last Jedi when Kylo had the potential to, shoot his own mother and did not. So it's that even makes me lean more towards the fact that Han killed Han to protect his son. Han killed Han to keep his son from taking that ultimate step into being, an agent of evil. I'm not saying Kylo didn't kill people, because you saw him, wiping the floor with people in Rise of Skywalker at the beginning.
He was no Vader, though. He wasn't walking down the street breaking little kids' necks, though.
Well, he was a young 20-something. You have to grow into that. The neck snap and strut. But yeah, I thought Adam Driver as Kylo Ren was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't. In again, I might be biased, but you don't get a much better casting than that. Like that's Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan levels of casting choices, in my personal opinion.
Well, I think the three of them, Finn, Rey, and Kylo, that reminds me of Luke, Carrie, and Han. That chemistry of those characters. You throw Poe into the mix, and you've got a quadrangle of great casting.
I do believe they call that a quartet.
A quartet.
Is that a quartet?
Yeah, because it wouldn't be. It would, yeah.
Quintet would be 5.
We got like 35 comments in the Facebook thing, and none of them came through. So I thought I had the comment thing working, and then it didn't.
What kind of things are they saying?
I don't know. I got to read 35 of them. Let me see.
While you're looking through those, I'm going to challenge the three of you with names for your Tuskens, and I've picked out names for you already.
Oh,
so Mike, you will be Herb E, spelled Herbie.
Oh yeah.
John, you will be Herbie, Herby, and I'm just going to be Herb. So the three of us, whenever we're traveling around together, you call us the Tusken Herbs.
Oh, there we go. I like that. Well, so I am like mildly obsessed with this Tusken rifle now.
Like, did you finish it or no?
No, because I was researching routers and router bits.
Oh, jeez.
I know. Like, because I need one more project. But I was looking at I can router out the top to put the barrel down in. Because I was thinking, I was going to cut the barrel and fasten it in. I was like, there has to be a router. So there's a router that does that. So I'm like, okay, now how can I secure this so that I don't run the router through my leg? So I'm going to put angle iron on my horses, and then I'll clamp it to an 90-degree angle iron.
Can't you just clamp the router to something and run the wood over the router instead of running the router?
Yeah, but then I need something to keep it straight. This way I can draw a line right down the middle, and I can run it right in the router right down the middle. And then I think for the new ones, I'll router the board before I even cut it.
Because that's what router tables are for.
Is there such thing as a router table?
100%.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do they sell it at Ryobi?
I'm not sure.
But no, but when you bring up the Tuscan, I'm like, oh man, I'm fixated on this.
So what I'm going to do, speaking of fixated on Tuscan rifles, as we take a quick detour into Sand Raider territory,
Yeah.
I'm going to make my stock out of that pink insulation that you can get at Home
Oh,
Depot.
nice.
So I'm going to glue a bunch of that together. It'll be lightweight, carve it, and then cover it with resin.
Buy a wire knife. You know what they are?
Yeah.
It's like with a hot wire.
Yep.
Because that'll seal the ends.
Okay.
Because we cut stuff with that at school. We had the kids make race cars. If I was at school, I should have brought one home. But they cut really nice, but they kind of seal the edges.
Okay.
I could have given you some of that green foam. I got tons of that for when I insulated the basement.
How thick is it?
Inch thick. So you have to layer it.
Yeah, I'd only need two pieces then.
Yeah.
Because imagine it's going to start off 2 inches thick, but then I'm going to.
Well, they sell like if you go. You have any like habitats near you, like
I think so. One of those reuse
sometimes you
stores.
can get like a quarter sheet from next to nothing at one of those places because like the builders will just dump off leftover stuff.
That's a good point.
No,
I only need 2 pieces that are 36 inches long by maybe a foot wide.
It's not that expensive. Like I think a whole sheet's like $13 or $14. Like for a 4x8 sheet, you could make rifles all day. I just watched Phantom Menace this morning. Watching the Tuscan shoot at the
pod racers.
The pod racers.
Is there anything else you guys want to chat about related to The Force Awakens? Other than the music, I thought the music was
good,
absolutely wonderful.
I will tell you the one thing I don't like about The Force Awakens. I am still not 100% sold on the Stormtrooper costumes. Like I know a bunch of my friends have them and stuff like that, and maybe I'm just an old grouchy TK. But man, I've seen guys suited. Man, talk about the most uncomfortable thing to wear. Like, and they're all magnetic, and they're like, it's almost as much as putting a droid on, you know. And you have to be slim. Like you're not wearing one of those my size.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm also not sold on the. I like the First Order TKs, but the big thing that gets me is the Joker smile.
Yeah,
that's my biggest gripe with those.
The Flame Troopers are all right, but I helped the guy with the Flame Trooper at Celebration, Howard. You know Howard. He might come to some of your maybe not, but he has the white Boba Fett.
Okay,
and he also has the Flame Trooper. He brought the Flame Trooper to Chicago. And I ran into him, and that's like the backpack is humongous, the gun is humongous, and you can't see anything. And so it's me squiring Safi as 000 and squiring him, and they both need a drink. So I'm like, okay, I got to take Safi's head off, and then I got to take her arms off so she can drink, and then I got to hold his helmet and his blaster because his blaster's connected to him so he can have a drink. Yeah, that was a fun times.
Oh, too funny.
But. Oh, there we go. John sent me a router.
Yep.
All right.
$130.
I'll go to the outlet. I'll get it for $99. No, I just this rifle. It's like because I can at least make 4 with that wood I have. Because I like to make 4 so they can stand together. Just
Yeah, I even think they have a round over bit on the router.
Yeah, they make one. It makes so, and I get like 1 inch. Conduit and do a 1 inch cut, and I can set it right in. Plug the end of the conduit with a piece of wood and some steel stick, so I can sand it, make it look like the end of a gun. Good to go.
And with that router table, you set up the rail and you run the wood straight over the router.
Yeah,
that way you don't have to run the risk. You could still cause damage yourself somehow. I'm sure it's possible.
Oh, well,
I've hurt myself with safety scissors, so.
That playhouse in my backyard, right? When Zoe or Safi graduated, one of them, I decided like 2 weeks before they graduated to tear it apart and fix it up because it was kind of dilapidated. It had a second story with a sliding board coming down. And so I decided to fix the whole thing. I was up on the roof in a thunderstorm with a circular saw, cutting the old roof off so I could put a new roof on it. I survived. So. The only thing that almost killed me was I found like a 4-foot long black snake in there. When I cut open the roof, there was a big black snake, scared the crap out of me.
In the roof?
Yeah, in the joist of, because it had a second story on it, and there was a little bit of a they hadn't used it as a playhouse for like 3 or 4 years, so it was, I was ready for bee's nest. I wasn't ready for a snake. So
I'm shocked that's the closest thing that came to killing you, not the thunderstorm, re-roofing.
Oh yeah,
power tools. No, snake. That's just a sign that nature wins every time.
Yeah,
nature wins.
Snakes. Why does it always have to be snakes?
Yeah,
Why is it got to be snakes on the roof of this mother effing fort?
Yeah. Well, Zoe used to have it all painted like the Ghost or Star Wars stuff inside when they were little. We painted the inside so they could write and it would chalk. So if I was a better dad, I would have built them a Millennium Falcon playhouse instead.
So with the Force Awakens, going back to the Stormtroopers, what were your thoughts on the revelation that those Stormtroopers were actually adult children that had been snatched up by the Empire?
I thought it was a great idea. I just wish they had done more with it.
Yeah, well, I think they did more. Don't you think they did more of it in Rebels?
They did some, but not in.
I mean, I agree with John. I wish they would have done more, but I think, like, at least after watching Phantom Menace, and you see all these people taking people's kids for whatever reason, is that a message George was trying to, like, is that a message about indoctrination? Like, is that a subtle nod to indoctrinating children about whatever at a small age, like how it's going to be bad,
What?
Chewie. We have a guest, Wolfie McWolfster.
Well, I definitely think there was a part of that related to, George's thoughts on religion, organized religion, and the struggles of dogma, and not necessarily knowing if the good guys were really the good guys, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jedi did some questionable stuff, even though they were tapped with being the good guys. And then fast forward to The Force Awakens, and you find out that the Empire was doing something very, very similar later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you would think, like, Inscription in any, if the Empire is some loosely based on any of the large empires, whether it be, evil empires, whether it be Germany during World War I or World War II, or whether it be the Roman Empire or a little bit of both, almost all of those had a level of inscription, not only to get their numbers up, but also to, if you take all the best fighting men from, in Earth terms, a country to put in your army, they don't have them left to rebel against you. So if the Empire comes through, or the First Order comes through to your planet and takes all your 10-year-old males, no matter who they are, you're going to have, at least in theory, and they took male and female because they had both. So they took your 10-year-old kids. You're going to have a gap of people that can fight for you.
And if you go back to the original trilogy, George fashioned the Empire partially out of the United States.
Yeah. Well, and we do. I mean, if during Vietnam, I mean, my father was part of that era, and you were given a number, and if you're came up, you went. Not only that, even more so, that's not reported as much. If you were, a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid that got in trouble, sometimes the military was offered to you rather than going to jail. That's what happened to my father. He was like, hey, you got in all this trouble. Well, you can either go to jail or we'll sign you up for the army. So you're taking the youth of a culture and putting them to your use.
Yeah, and even though you'd mentioned that it didn't get developed much, the idea of, you know, snatching children and training them into adulthood into soldiers, it showed up again in the Rise of Skywalker, and I think part of that is because of J.J. Abrams' involvement with those two movies.
Yeah.
And if the Rise of Skywalker had followed through on Colin Trevorrow's story, it would have been a much different story. It would have had much more of um, the stormtroopers rebelling against the First Order. There was a whole section where Finn was going to lead a stormtrooper uprising on Coruscant.
Yeah.
That was part of the Colin Trevorrow script that was leaked after the movie came out.
I am surprised at the sequels that they didn't do what a lot of movies were doing at the time, where they made the last episode 2 movies. You remember, like with Harry
Oh, yeah.
Potter, they
Harry
made
Potter.
2, and The Hobbit, they stretched that out to 3. You know, I was surprised that they didn't double up on that one.
Which is really funny because the middle movie of this trilogy was the longer one.
Yeah, yeah.
That movie was like 2 hours and 32 minutes. I think it was the longest of the trilogy.
Yeah, I don't know. Star Wars in general, it never seems long to me. There's like, I don't mind long movies, but if they feel long to me, then I know I'm not really into them. Like the last Batman movie, it flew by. Like I was like, what? It's over? You know?
Yeah.
So that brings us to the Last Jedi. Then we'll go from the Force Awakens to the Last Jedi. You know, and if we don't realize it by now, we're probably going to spoil that movie too.
Yeah,
so.
Spoilers. I liked it that the Emperor was back. I know a lot of people did not, but I liked it, you know, because he was the ultimate baddie, and I liked it that the Emperor was back.
Oh, for Rise of Skywalker, you mean?
Yeah, is that the one we're on? No,
we're on the middle one.
Last Jedi.
Oh, we're on the middle one. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
Well, let's go to the bombing run. I love the bombing run. I think the only thing that I think threw some people off was they said that movie took place right after the first movie, but technically the first movie ended a couple weeks after it was over. Remember?
Yep.
Like it ended, they blew up Starkiller Base. Then they had that scene where Rey was going to find Luke. They kind of made it seem like a little bit of time had passed. Like she didn't just hop out of the Falcon, check on Finn, and then run right to get Luke. It seemed like some time had passed. Or am I just
Oh,
thinking,
no, I felt the same way.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it was, and I don't want to call it a mistake because obviously it was done for a reason. I think what they could have done is if they were going to pick up right after the events of The Force Awakens, they should have immediately gone to Ahch-To, showed Rey handing off the lightsaber, and then Luke tossed it over his back, and then cut to everything happening on
yeah,
oh god, what's the planet?
it's blown up now, so we don't care.
Yeah. Whatever the resistance base was.
But I think some people got confused with that. Like they, you know, that they thought like it when they said right after that. I think they forgot that there was some time had passed.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that whole dreadnought thing. I liked Finn, Poe. Like that showed like too many times in movies they talk about how great someone is and how whatever, and then you don't get to see them be great. You got to see Poe be Poe. You know, like he bragged a lot in the first one, but he didn't do any. You know, he did some cool stuff, but this time he took on a dreadnought, and he knew exactly what he was doing. You know.
Well,
yeah,
and
not only that.
With that said, I'm going to guess that at some point he would have had to have told Leia and the rest of the crew that's what the plan was.
Yeah.
Yeah, not only that, but you also get to see Poe get knocked down a peg. He gets humbled afterwards.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He had to suffer the repercussions of him being really good, but not everyone else being as good as him. You know, because he survived, but yeah, I mean, it was definitely he got some stuff like that. And see that whole scene reminded me my dream. And I don't know if I brought this up. Have you guys ever seen Baba Black Sheep, the TV show?
No.
Okay, in the 70s, I know I'm old. There was a TV show based on Pappy Boyington. Have you guys ever heard of him? He was a World War II Marine pilot that flew Corsairs on attacks from Japan. And the TV series was basically like a weekly series, almost like they would go fight in the war. They were this secluded base of like reject pilots that were really good. And so when I saw Poe do that, I'm like, what? Why couldn't we get a series like that, like a weekly series of just some X-wing pilots that do nothing that affects the overall? There's no big arching story. It's just, hey, we're going to fight this whatever, and then this week we're going to, and that's what that reminded me of when Poe was doing that kind of stuff.
What do you think? That's what they were aiming at with Star Wars Resistance?
Well, partially, but Resistance was more like on the racing part.
Okay.
And see, I think it's one of those ones where I think live action, like I just picture like the flight suits, and your daily briefing, and you suit up, and 6 go out on a mission, and something happens, and it's always just like a neat 1 hour show. Like half hour in, it looks like it's dire, and in the last 15 minutes they save the day, and has that 80 montage opening credit. No one in the credits is getting killed. There's some old timer yelling that they always blowing up his X-wings.
Well, we might be getting that with Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron.
Maybe.
So, but I mean, obviously, it's not going to be a series. It's going to be its own standalone movie. But I mean, we might get something similar to that.
But if you get a chance to watch Baba Black Sheep, at least 1 or 2 episodes, then you'll. I can't do it justice. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't stand up. I haven't watched it in 30 years, but.
One thing I was amazed about Poe after that first scene is how emotionally detached he was from the loss of all of those other pilots. It was as if he had, I don't know, lost a coffee cup or something like that. There was no connection to any of them. It was just like, yeah, okay, we lost some ships and we lost some people. Big whoop. Let's keep shooting at things.
Well, don't you think that's like, I don't know anything about war. I'm not a soldier or anything, but don't you think that's almost like trained into a pilot? Like I would imagine like like you would almost have to be that way. Because you wouldn't want your pilots to fall apart every time you lost somebody.
Yeah, but even if they're not a displaying the emotion, there was just no sense of loss.
Yeah,
It was. I mean, Leia herself said, we lost, heroes, but no leaders. But there was, it was as if they were just things in Poe's mind.
Well, Poe always came across as slightly selfish.
Oh goodness, yeah, and I think that was part of the character arc, because if you think about him, at the end of that movie and into Rise of Skywalker, it became less about him and more about the group. I actually have a friend, or it was a person I used to work with, who after the Last Jedi, he wrote me a 4 or 5 screen email telling me about how bad The Last Jedi was, and because of it, he would never watch another Star Wars movie.
That's hardcore. I mean,
he went on a tirade of social justice warriors and feminism, and just he was huge, absolutely huge. This email about how bad the movie was. And I don't think I talked to him after that. Really, I don't, definitely not on purpose. Like I wouldn't go out of my way to engage him in conversation.
Well, it is weird. It is weird what the sequels brought out in people. I understand people don't like every movie. I'm fine with that. But I think in almost there's very few movies I can't find something I enjoy. I mean, we pay, like, if you think about what you pay for a movie, even if you buy the most expensive seat and buy popcorn, you're still paying less than $20. You get a lot for that. You know what I mean? Like, and then to complain, I don't know. I I just thought, and the Kylo and Rey fight with the Praetorian guards. I mean, how cool was that? You
Oh, that
know,
was fantastic. From a visual perspective and from a choreography perspective, it was super.
and all those Royal Guard guys in the 501st were like starting to make their Praetorian guards. Because the Royal Guard guys, like I know a couple guys that do Royal Guards in the 501st. They're like a hardcore, like even more hardcore than I am with stormtroopers. Like those Royal Guard guys, man, they're like all about like my friend Chris. He's working on the blue one from the prequels.
The Senate Guard.
Yeah, he's working on the Senate Guard, and he's working on a whole bunch of, and they're all just 100% like all the guards. It's just that's what they want to do.
Yeah, I'd like to do a Royal Guard, but as much as I like not having oxygen, I think I'm gonna have to pass.
Yeah, a lot of guys, like I said, they put holes in the foam so they can breathe, and then some guys put a backpack with a thing that pumps air in.
Mm.
Plus, Royal Guards look best in pairs. I've been to a lot of troops where there's like one, and they don't know really what to do. You know, they're kind of like, oh, where do I stand?
Well, they
But,
remind me of the British Royal Guard with the big fuzzy hat. I mean,
yeah,
other than marching back and forth and standing, what do they really do?
yeah. Well, and then there's a bunch from the EU that had like armor underneath and like fought and stuff.
Oh, they were the great ones.
Yeah.
There was a entire line of comic books for them.
But that's a weird costume, man, because you can have like the one, and you can only have like one slit for your arm to come out or something. It's like, man, it looks so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in velveteen, like nothing like 90-degree heat in a big tube with velveteen. But that's what, like, I was looking at when the first new movies came out. I was like, oh, what costumes? And I didn't see any costumes that I really wanted to do. Like, it wasn't, mainly just but it made me like my costumes more because it made me feel like the prequels. And I mean, the sequels made me know that there's going to be a whole new group of costumes that I'm going to be able to troop now with. Like it used to be, we were lucky if we got a Vader. Now we can get Vader, we can get Kylo, and it just brings in more people into the fandom. Because for some kids, Kylo is their guy, like
Yeah.
Vader was for me.
So, I think if we're gonna have another thematic armor party,
Mm-hmm.
it should be the Knights of Ren. We should work on Knights of Ren
yeah.
costumes
Mm.
because there's 6 of those guys,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and we could work on it. They'd be all different ones,
yeah, that would be a good one.
and those two, like the Royal Guards, are better when there's a bunch of them.
Does mine count as being done? Because I'm technically one of the Knights of Ren, just
Yeah.
the leader.
Wait a minute. Ben White doesn't like the second sequel movie.
Ben.
Yeah, well,
we'll still like you, Ben.
we still
fine.
like you too, Ben. It's fine. I think Solo took a hit from it, but I mean, I don't know. Like I saw Solo in the theater and I loved it. Solo was I lucked out and got to see the drive-in because I trooped the drive-in, and when you get to stand and ask people for their identification when you're in a stormtrooper costume, that's pretty cool. And people,
so I saw Solo a bunch of times in the theater. However, I struggled in the theater because I thought parts of it were too dark to see. Like in the White Worm area where it was all blue,
or
when they were in that Imperial Bus Depot or whatever it was, the border crossing.
I think your theater was messed up, man. I think your theater might have messed up.
But when I watched it at home, I absolutely positively love it.
Like and I will never apologize for liking Star Wars. So if you're just tuning in, I cannot honestly think of any Star Wars I don't like. Like, so
Yeah, there's nothing I hate as a whole. There are parts of every movie that I dislike, but I agree with you, Mike. There's nothing that has come out where I can definitively say, yeah, I don't like it.
I mean, the first thing that ever bothered me about Star Wars was in New Hope. I always wondered why Luke and Han, it would have been a better scene if they threw their thermal detonator down the hallway before they went in a trash suit. Like just having them pull the thermal detonator off their back in their stormtrooper armor. Well, Luke didn't have one because he had the cable one, and throw it. Now, that's just me being a dumb kid, once they found out they were thermal detonators. But if someone took the amount of effort that they did to pick the new films apart, and if you put that same scrutiny on New Hope, just alone, like, why did Luke have the one stormtrooper that had a grappling hook on? Like that alone seems odd. But we just accept it because the thing with Star Wars is all those parts are just they're to push the story forward.
And that's a wonderful thing to think about. So when you're watching these movies and you're making that choice to tear them apart, which parts are you tearing apart? Are you tearing apart the story, the continuation from one movie to the next? Are you tearing apart the technical aspects of the movie making? Like this costume didn't look right, or that ship couldn't have done that thing that it did. I mean, one of the complaints I've heard about The Last Jedi was the bombers. How did those bombs fall out of the ship when there's no gravity in space? And when you think about it, or not think about it, but I thought in one of the books they talked about them being propelled magnetically.
Yeah.
So they were pushed out of the bomber and not necessarily dropped out of the bomber, and they were attracted to that other large magnetic object that was below it.
Also, I think when you're looking for how things work in science fiction, I think that's called Star Trek.
Oh, I'm getting my stars mixed up. My stars aren't aligned.
It's nothing wrong with either of the franchises, but if you look at Star Trek, you will find book after book explaining how something works. They will go in, and that's what Star Trek people were. That's what they like. Star Wars doesn't really explain how things work. They'll show you how it looks, and they'll show you, and they'll just have a line pointing to something, and they'll call it some name that you never heard of. It's just the difference. It's the difference in that, because I remember hearing that about the bombs, but then I'm like, you know what? Then why do the TIE fighters make noise? There's no noise in space either.
Right.
But in theory, in real science, the Death Star would have an atmosphere eventually because it's so big. It would have its own gravitational pull. So then, if you wanted it to get science fiction, it would eventually have some water vapor, because anything that kicks out of the Death Star would be trapped in its gravitational field, whether it's very small or not. But even a moon has a little bit of gravity. And if our moon was expelling gases, like the Death Star had to expel gases when it moved and all this, those would be trapped in that. It would have an atmosphere around it. Maybe not a breathable atmosphere. But I don't
actually, if we're going back to A New Hope, can someone explain to me how Luke's 2 photon missiles turned 90 degrees to go down a
why wouldn't you just fly straight towards the hole? Like, we could go down the trench, but let's just go straight. Let's go where the hole is and just go straight down.
It would increase our chances of hitting it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to joke around about that stuff, but if that's all, if we just came on here every week and just talked, we could probably fill 3 hours with just everything that was wrong with New Hope. And we could do that with every movie.
If our next Wednesday if April 1st falls on a Wednesday,
there you go.
We should do an entire episode of us talking about everything. It wouldn't be a serious one, of course.
Yeah.
But it would just be an entire episode of us trashing it all.
Yeah. Yeah, like when William Shatner was on Saturday Night Live. Remember when he was telling all those fans to get a life or something like that?
Yeah.
That old sketch. Yeah, I mean, that's, like, I thought Rose Tico was an awesome character. And I thought, like, her finding Finn, who was going to basically leave just to save one person, and Rose explaining what she had went through. And then there was a book with Rose Tico, too, about her and her sister, too.
Okay.
Which I know you shouldn't count on the books, but before people complain about something in a movie, they should research and see if there's other materials. Not that you should have to do homework for a movie, but Star Wars is such a big thing. Before you think something's weak on something, look and see if there is other materials to go with it. Not that you should have to do homework, but the plus side to Lucasfilm now is everything matters.
Yeah, it's connected in more ways than it ever was before.
Yeah.
Before we stray too far, mark your calendars. April 1st, 2026.
Oh, okay.
When our bashing Star Wars podcast will be.
Well, we might just have to change a night one night or something. Oh, your Kylo saber?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about this. The guy who did your Kylo saber, I forget his name. He did one of Zoe's old sabers. If you unscrew the back, there should be a plug in there that you can plug a power.
I figured it out.
Oh, okay, good.
I totally disassembled it the other night just because I'm like, I want to turn this on and see what it looks like with the blade covers on it.
Okay, good. I just thought of that. My brain.
How does it look?
I will show you. I feel bad. You can see my Vader saber. Vader was replaced on my because I've got one of the old Force Effects stands that came with this saber.
Yeah.
I had to replace it with Kylo.
You should 3D print yourself a good Kylo stand.
Yeah, that was the other thing. I don't mean to get too off topic, but last night I was trying to because I just want a 3D printed saber that I could put on the belt.
Yeah.
I cannot find a good clip that fits in that slot for the belt.
You need to get an old CB, the back of a CB.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the handheld CBs.
Yeah,
that's what you need. You need one of those buttons. So find someone with an old crappy CB, crack that handle off, and put a screw through it right into the handle.
Well, that might just work.
Or what about the end for one of those chain locks?
Yeah, but it's actually the holder is a CB. It's like what police put up on their shoulder, to hold their mic. Okay. It's an actual CB holder because Vader has the same one.
Would you fit on one of those, Mike?
Huh?
Would a police officer be able to clip you to their shoulder?
No, they're CB. Let's see the saber. I want to see the saber.
Take your headphones
off. I
off.
turned the chat on for those that are chatting, so even if you disagree with us, your chat will appear. It won't appear the old stuff, but if you want to jump in and chat away. Well, there you go.
Yeah, so it looks good. I mean, the light kind of washes it out, but it does look good with the blade covers on it.
Yeah.
That is pretty sharp.
However, they are just like tape and hot glue.
Yeah, well, I know the guy who made it. He was big into making sabers for a while, and he got
burnt out.
No, he got too many orders going, and I think like the Ahsoka he did for me and Marty's were some of his last ones because he would just promise the world, and then like when I got hers, like you had to take the speaker out and the plug out to plug it in. I was like, oh, this is not fun.
Yeah, I will say this though, the sound is a lot better than the stock Black Series.
Yeah. Well, he probably put up they use model train speakers in those things. So to make them a little louder. So that's cool. Yeah, I would look at a CB handle for that because I got to figure out what to do with Vader because when I did Vader for 2 hours, I was carrying that stupid lightsaber around for 2 hours. It was getting heavy, So I think what I'm going to do is put a clip on the back of my belt so I can hang the one with the blade behind my cape, and then have a light one on my belt too, just to hang. Because I think for Vader you have to have a lightsaber to get in the.
Yeah, any of the Sith Lords, you have to have their accompanying lightsaber. Yeah, I think except for the Emperor.
You do Yoda. I wonder if there's a Yoda. Oh, there's Ken had the roll. No, that's good. I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see your approval. You should post a picture of you in your suit. What'd your dad think? That's what I want to know. What was
Oh,
your dad?
my dad was enthralled. He loved it.
I was curious, like what your family thought of your adventure when you came home. Like
My dad was excited to see all the things that I brought back with me. Which, by the way, I asked him when I got home, like, "Hey, is there any chance you would help me unload my car real quick?" His first words weren't sure or no. It was, "That's a small car. How did you fit so much in it?" And I told him, like, I left with 3 times as much as I initially went with.
yeah.
But yeah, my my dad was super excited to hear about everything, but my mom, on the other hand, was more so just, all right, you made it back, you had fun.
You're alive.
That's all I really care about.
Yeah. Well, it is a weird. It's the costuming thing. Unless you're in it, it does come across weird. You know, like I'm looking at my phone and I have solitaire. I am too cheap to pay 99 cents for solitaire, so I get ads in between solitaire. But I have a Darth Vader helmet that costs a crap ton of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally understand that one. Hang on, I gotta hang this back up.
I think it's funny that you play solitaire on a device that's connected to a satellite in space. You can use your phone as a GPS, and you're playing solitaire on it.
I know. That's my when I'm sitting in the car waiting for somebody. I'm usually listening to a podcast and playing solitaire. I tried those other, like I used to have some of those other games, and I hate games where you have to buy stuff like real
Oh
money.
yeah, I agree.
I'm like, yeah. So
Yeah. Oh, I'm trying because I'm putting a third picture on my desk now because I still have the one of the 4 of us with Marty. I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to put the one from the recording studio or the one of me and Kylo in front of the 3 of us.
I think you and Kylo. I think come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Or you need one of those hologram ones that it changes, you know, when they.
Yeah. Or I might get one of the double decker ones where you can put 2 pictures in it.
You just need a digital frame. That's all. Just buy a digital frame. Just load it up.
Yeah.
When you start doing troops, I highly recommend that if you can get your dad to go along with you as a squire, or whatever they call them, helpers or whatever they call them, get someone you know, a friend or someone to go to take pictures, to make sure they just help, because they'll have fun helping other people, but also then you're sure to get tons of pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because some of your first troops, I wish I would have had, like, because my first couple I went and Missy didn't go with the kids yet. I didn't get any pictures. And then once the girls started going, Missy went, we got tons of pictures. And some of those troops are just so awesome to get, you know.
Yeah, I was like, I finally found the calendar of all
nice.
It took me this long to figure out where those were at.
Yeah, the forum, the 501st forums are not the easiest things to, like maybe.
Oh, you want confusion? You should you should go to the Mandalorian Mercs forum.
Yeah,
yeah. But Ohio has its own separate website.
Yeah.
For the calendar, and I was very taken aback by that.
Yeah, well, that's what Karita has. Most of them have their own calendar. Like Karita has one. You probably should. I don't know how far is West Virginia from you?
2.5, 3 hours.
So you might want to just see if you can, once you're in, see if you can get on their boards. Only because they might have like a cool event that's worth a 2-hour drive. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
and sadly, the events don't the events on the forums don't give you an idea necessarily of who's going to be at them.
Yeah,
so
well,
you may have to go to that event's official page if you want to. Like, for instance, when we went to the Fan Expo in Philadelphia, you know, and saw Ashley Eckstein and Claudia Gray and.
Yeah. I still think my biggest worry is that, because there are a couple other Kylos. I don't remember. It's between 5 and 15.
Let's see. What you do is click on that Kylo in their thing and see what other costumes they have.
Mm-hmm.
Because What I have found with guys that have multiple costumes, a lot of times, like if someone comes in and they just have a Boba Fett, and a guy has a Boba Fett and a Vader, a lot of times the guy with the Boba Fett and Vader will be like, "Okay, I'll do Vader since you only have a Boba Fett."
Mm-hmm.
Most people are pretty cool about that. And in like big events, like ball games and stuff, a lot of times they don't care if there's more than one. They'll just say, "Look, you stay over here and you stay over there." I mean,
Yeah. I just want to get a troop in, like,
yeah,
as soon as possible.
you can always now. What's nice is you can troop Steel City.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't get anything free for them because they don't give any free passes or anything at Steel City yet. But that would count as a troop. You just go in and troop for a couple hours.
Right.
Well, the other part too with that costume, you don't have to necessarily troop with the group.
Right.
Yeah.
You could wear that down to the local ice cream stand. It's yours.
Don't get ice cream on it.
Yeah, I don't want to even see the dry cleaning bill on that costume.
Well, I'm telling you, keep an eye out for air and scare.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something to even check with your dad. Say, look, can you, because he would probably enjoy it too. Because you get in the museum.
I know for a fact if I can convince him, first off, if I can be one of the 130 people to go,
mm-hmm.
and I tell him like, hey, I'm going to this troop. It's at the Smithsonian. You're gonna see the space shuttle. I guarantee you that's all the explanation I'll need.
Well,
yeah,
and the Enola Gay is there.
Enola Gay,
the SR-1 Blackbird.
There's some Messerschmitts there, some seaplanes. They even have a vintage Star Wars collection in the one case next to the space shuttle.
Well, I thought they had, if I'm not mistaken, I thought they had E.T.'s mothership.
Well, I don't know. See, some of those they have for anniversaries, but they might still have it. But it's an awesome troop, and if they get to do some of the outside, sometimes they let more people in. But as soon as that goes up and live, see if you can do it. I mean, it's well worth it. And it's an hour. You literally troop an hour. I mean, you can troop all day, but they'll assign you a spot. They'll assign you a spot, and you'll be able to, go there and troop. So it's well worth it.
Yeah, I'm just honest to God, like, yeah, I'm excited to troop. It's nice to finally have a costume. I just want to meet more people. I need more Star Wars people in my life.
Me too, man.
That is
not saying you guys aren't enough. There's always room for more.
I'm with you. I'm at least where I'm at. I'm everybody's drinking buddy's friend that knows, like, almost most of my friends at work are like, they use me as the guy who knows more about their friend that thinks they're a Star Wars fan. Like, their friend will say, "Hey, I'm a Star Wars fan," and we'll say, "Oh, you should see this guy," and they'll start showing pictures. So I feel blessed to be that guy.
I actually, speaking of that, so obviously, like, I've got the pictures of us on my desk, which I did add to that. I added Verizon gave us this. I don't know if I told you guys this, but it was hey, you pay us so much money. Here's a couple freebies that you can get. One of them was a Fujifilm 4x4 metal picture.
Oh, okay.
So I took one of the pictures that Marty took of me and my Mando, and I put that on my desk.
Nice.
But someone had, I think I was going out and getting gas in a car, but someone had asked one of our finance managers, like, I didn't even see all the pictures on his desk. Like, is he in the 501st? And Vinny was like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
The who, what now?
But yeah, I just thought that was funny, where it's like, yeah, I'm that guy.
You're that guy now. Yeah. That's cool, though.
Did I ever tell you guys why I have those on my desk?
Mm-mm.
Because we're awesome.
Other than that, of course. There was someone that I work with had told me, because he's an artist, he does a lot of drawing, so he's got a couple pictures that he drew on his desk. And I asked him, like, hey, you used to have a picture of you and your dad and you and your wife. Like, why'd you swap them out for these? And he's like, I swear to God, this will never leave me. It's, people know you have a family, you've got a wife and kids, you've got pets, what have you. Put something on your desk that's going to start a conversation.
Ah, there you go. So we're nothing but a sales ploy. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Oh yes, of course. That's all you are to me. I spend 4 hours with you every week just to get a few extra sales.
I'm fine with that, though. I'm fine.
Hey, if it works. I'd rather be the tool in your toolbox that you use than the tool in your toolbox that you forget you even have. So
you guys have helped me sell a couple cars. I'm not even gonna lie.
That's good.
that's my buddy Boom Boom, and that's Mike, and that's Marty when he's not a Chewbacca.
Yeah, when he's not 7'4".
Yeah. Yeah. Chewy's always a good. Chewy. I gotta bring you pictures. I gotta put this up.
Oh, the Rad Batch.
You have to have Dexter on your show.
Oh, I know. I gotta have Dexter do some artwork for Zoe's podcast. I gotta do a commission.
We're having a little bit of a hiccup with our podcast. So Anthony had created an intro. I could be doing homework tonight for our podcast, but he had done an intro for our podcast, and the last episode got flagged by Facebook because of music or something.
Oh yeah. You
gotta and so we got to redo our intro.
I had to do redo 119 episodes of Zoe's podcast because of that. Because we had a violin intro of The Revenge of the Sith. Right? I bought it. I thought it was copyright free. It said, use whatever, but it got flagged, and so I had to go through and undo all of them and then put Sal's intro on all of them.
Which really doesn't make any sense to me because I can't even count the number of videos I've seen where it has either movie clips or some sort of music from something else, and
but they might like. Do they get through on Facebook or are they on YouTube? Because a lot of times you'll just get a copyright notice and then you can't monetize.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
We're not even on YouTube yet, so
right. But what I'm saying, Facebook is the worst. Like TikTok, that's like the Wild West. TikTok, they don't care, except for the really long ones. But and Instagram is a little iffier, but Facebook's the worst. Like Facebook is petrified. Now with Spotify, if you use Anchor, Anchor, that goes through Spotify, which I don't understand because you can put Spotify music on your show, which I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't.
Right back.
I do not understand how any of that works. I just know that our last episode, the one that we just recently listened to, because what happens is we record it like this. We record a video and then we save the audio and put that on Anchor and release our video on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so our video version of the show has been flagged and folks aren't able to see it.
Yeah, like I said, they're picky about music. It's just they don't.
But what's really weird is we've had that intro for several episodes, and those other episodes did not get flagged.
Their algorithm might have just hit that one. I don't know how their algorithm works, or could it be like you could be talking over the certain bars that don't get,
That's a good point. Well, no, that doesn't make sense either because he does the intro and then whatever it is we say at the beginning. So the intro is always, from what I remember, always sounds the same.
Unless you guys just got big enough.
Oh yeah, that's that. We're probably in the almost double digits of listeners at this point.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we have 11s of listeners.
11? We have 11s listeners.
It amazes me when I look at some of these YouTube videos where it's hundreds of thousands of views and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Goodness. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, but I think part of it is it's like there is just a randomness of luck, like this just because there's some good shows out there that people don't listen to, and there's some crap. Like there's a couple Star Wars podcasts that always come up first, and I refuse to listen to them. They're terrible, but they're tons of followers because they're some of the old podcasts that have been around.
Gotcha.
And they were some of the worst homophobic, Like I think Zoe's numbers would be bigger if we didn't have it called Star Wars Geek Girl. But we, like I think that hurts her numbers a lot.
Well, and at the same time, it may protect her numbers, so the people that listen to it are true legit supporters and fans.
Oh
and
yeah,
not
yeah,
just,
yeah. No, I mean we wouldn't change it. That's just but I'm saying I know. It used to be when you were doing a Star Wars podcast, you had to have the word Star Wars in the name. So I think like the one I did for us on iTunes, it's the Inflatable Falcon, a Star Wars podcast, because they recommend putting Star Wars in the name somewhere.
Gotcha.
You know, um, just it helps your numbers a little bit. So back in that was like 8 years ago when they used to talk podcasts. It's probably a slightly different algorithm now.
Speaking of which, any word on the racing shirts?
I would have looked at them. I was lazy, to be honest with you. I just I think let me see if I can remember the name. Marty told me, and I think it's like Keep Smile or something like that. Weird. It's a weird like. Yeah, keepsmile.com. That's who it is. But they don't it doesn't look like they give you a quote.
Looks like you got it. The minimum order is 10 though.
Yeah. So well we got 3. unless we did one of the whole
The
group.
Unifying Fandom Network.
Unifying Fandom shirt, and then we'd have each of our logo, make it look like a real racing shirt, like have logos all over it.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
I know we do racing shirts for the 501st. They run around $30 to $60 depending on how many you get, and they run very small. So guys say they don't run small, but they run small. Because when they measure them, I think they lay them flat. Like, so when it says 36 inches around, it's 36 inches flat,
It's 36 inches across.
Yeah. Like so.
Well, Ken, talk to your peeps at the Forces Behind Star Wars. See if you can drum up another 7 people. 7?
Oh, that'd be. I think that'd be easy to do.
Well, and then we just have to vectorize the art, and if we put everyone's art, I'll say something to Sal and see if those guys are interested.
Yeah, because then so there'd be the 5 of us, the 2 of you, so that's 7, right? My math is.
And then you got the 2. You have to buy 2.
The Star Wars Geek Girls, that's 2 right there.
Well, those girls are poor, so that means me and Sal will be buying them because they're both poor college students. Zoe was complaining she only had 130 hours this week, or 2 weeks. They don't pay overtime at the amusement park, though. She would be loaded if they paid overtime.
She wouldn't have 130 hours if they paid overtime.
That's true, too.
Yeah. I used to do the same thing at the theater because they didn't have to pay us overtime either.
Yeah. Well, she got trained on security today.
Oh, yeah, I could see her as a bruiser.
Oh, no, man. Zoe can guilt you into doing the right thing.
She's very, very passive-aggressive, authoritative.
One of my favorite stories, non-Star Wars stories about her was when she was little, she won an award for a writing something, and they give her an envelope. It was supposed to have like $20 in it, and it had 40 or something in it, and she took the other 20 back to the office, and give it to them because they accidentally give her too much money for her. She was like, 3rd, 4th grade. So, one of my happiest stories of that kid.
What is her impression of The Last Jedi?
She likes it. She likes The Last Jedi. I mean, she's kind of in the same boat as me. And I think she looks at it, as much as I say I look at it as filmmaking, that's just me thinking I know what I'm talking about. But she actually knows what she's talking about. Like she took all those classes and she's worked on film. So she likes, so anywhere she doesn't like the story, she likes that. But she has read all the source material. So I think she sees a different movie than some of us. Because because she has read everything that has come out since since Disney started publishing books. She's read every book at least once, if not twice. It's
Oh,
like
some of the novels and stuff like that.
everything, yeah. Like it's in my world, you would not think that libraries exist because they just show up on Amazon. Like as soon as it's announced, it's pre-ordered. You saw that wall, my secret door bookcase. You know, she has a whole nother bookcase up in her room of Star Wars books.
So what is your impression, John and Mike, of the Luke Skywalker that we saw in the Rise of Skywalker? Or sorry, not in the Last Jedi, because a lot of folks say that that's not the Luke Skywalker that they knew or that they thought would be on screen.
I agree 100% that it's not the Luke I knew, and I'm glad it wasn't the Luke I knew. I've said this many times. He went into that cave with his weapons on Empire, and I think violence and him being impulsive is what set him on that path. And he had to make up like his. I think Luke was in the same, not as much as Vader, but I think Luke was a little full of himself, you know, and he didn't have the faith in the Force at right. And I think like he started a new school, all that. I liked what they did with him because it showed growth. Like if he would have been Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi, I think I would have been really disappointed. Like if he would have been this super great Jedi saving the universe, I don't know if that would have been very Star Warsy to me.
Let me put it this way. What exactly is different between Luke in The Last Jedi and Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back? They were both in exile. They both shut themselves off from the Force. They both refused to train their student at first, and then decided to train them, and their student left after an argument.
Well, I think with that, the one difference, apart from height, is Yoda actually trained Luke in using the Force, and Luke spent his time explaining the flaws of the Jedi faith.
Mm.
And so the training that he provided to Rey wasn't necessarily Jedi training. It wasn't training how to be a Jedi. It was, here are the reasons why you should not become a Jedi. So I think that's the big difference between Yoda and Luke. And I mean, if we look at Luke and what he experienced before we saw him on Ahch-To, he experienced great loss and guilt and failure, so much so that he thought his best next move was to step away from everything, literally and figuratively turn himself off from all of it, because he was concerned that he was actually causing more damage than good.
Yeah, and I personally, I think Luke's arc in the sequel trilogy is the best they could have done.
Yep.
I've said this before, and I will say it again. God forbid we have a little bit of character growth in our Star Wars. It's it's the same reason people complain about Boba Fett in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
It's not the same character because they grew as a character. They're a different person from the time that we last saw them.
Plus, Baby Yoda turned him down. That probably pushed him over the edge right there.
Yeah, that was the start of everything.
But I also think the good thing about the story they did, as much as I love the old movies, I do want to see them. I like the TV series touching on stuff we already know, but I can't wait until it moves even further away from that. You know?
Yeah.
Like I want to see the High Republic stuff. I want to see, you know, I mean, it can still have a little callback. Like I felt like Mandalorian did a really good job at just giving you close to what you think you wanted, but it's seeming what, you know what I mean? Like they didn't, like when you first saw the Mandalorian, you're thinking, oh, I hope they get they show us some of the bounty hunters. Well, they showed us like Trandoshans. They didn't show us Zuckuss. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or they showed us like Zero, but they didn't show us Forlom. You know what I mean? Or any of those. I don't know. I felt like the Mandalorian did a really good job of just giving us enough nod to the old stuff, but letting us move past it.
Yeah, it'll be nice when we finally get to a point. And now this is not to say that I don't enjoy what has come before, but it will be nice when we get to a point where they're not overly reliant on all of the characters in the stories that have come before. Like,
Right.
there's going to be a time where you're not going to see Luke Skywalker anymore.
Right.
And I'm personally excited to see what they do when they're forced to create new things and go in different directions.
Right.
Well, do you think they will maintain the title of, or the group of Force users called Jedi? Do you think they will keep that?
Going forward past the Rise of Skywalker, probably not.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's where I think that's where I wouldn't mind seeing a Rey story to see what she does with it. Because she's set up the best. She's set up the best to put it on the right path.
Or even just a different path, not necessarily the right one, but a different one.
It'll never be the right path because there wouldn't be very many stories of, hey, everything's fine, let's go.
Yeah, I think now, just to put a bit of realism on it, as much as I agree with you, yes, I would love to see a Rey story. I doubt that it ever happens for the simple fact of, Daisy Ridley is just been ridiculed till the end of time for the sequel trilogy, and same with John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, and all of these other characters. I think the only one who hasn't is Adam Driver.
Well, you know what solves that though? A boatload of money.
Yeah.
Because Harrison Ford he wasn't picked on because we didn't have the internet. But man, they would have beat him up pretty bad too in the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark Hamill, all them, But yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that in the sense that they've beaten her up. The only thing you have to hope is in a couple years maybe cooler heads prevail when those kids when the sequels were their movies and they're growing up and having families. Hopefully, it'll be a slightly more better time, possibly. Yeah. But who knows?
Also, are we switching to a 10 o'clock or are we just sticking with
I didn't make
stream?
a 10 o'clock one this week. I didn't see any difference in the numbers, so I was like, yeah, what the hell? I'll cut it up later. If I get to the point of chopping them up on Anchor, then we'll do it just for the ease of chopping them up.
Mm-hmm.
I wish Anchor had an algorithm where it would just drop in spots, but I don't know if they do or not.
What do you mean drop in spots?
Like drop breaks in for you, where you can just drop in like commercials and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think they automatically do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all still need to do bumpers.
Yeah, I know. We had tons of plans for this weekend, and it kind of went to shit. Sunday, dude. I was beat. I was like ready to. I was ready to fall asleep.
So nobody came back over your house on Sunday?
We had some. Yeah, John came back. Dan
and Bob, and that was it.
Yeah. And then Quinn showed up. I was just getting ready to like shut things down, and Quinn and his friends just showed up to hang. I was like, it was cool, but I was like, oh man, I gotta get. So we just hung out for a little bit, but it was good. I mean, again, that heat didn't do us any favors, man. And then I think I was pre-diabetic just from all the sugar I drank from the slushies, because I probably
goes back to my human hummingbird thing. I mean, you would flit over here and flit over there, and every once in a while you'd take a sip of sugar, and then.
But then, like Monday when I didn't have any, I was like, I was like crashing. I was like, I need sugar. You couldn't get enough sugar in me.
Yeah,
But
thankfully, I try and control how much sugar I put into my body.
I do, but slushies are that's my Achilles heel. Because I don't. There's not really much like. There's no ice cream I can really eat. There's vegan ice cream, but it's kind of. But everyone liked their vegan manwich, so I was happy with that.
I was surprised because I'm the kind of person where I love just a nice thick slice of American cheese on a sloppy Joe. So
We had vegan cheese.
So yeah, that's what I did. Is I would put my manwich on the bun and then put like a half or a quarter scoop of the nacho cheese on the sandwich
Yeah,
and the rest on my plate.
See, I find it very, very funny that you call it cheese.
Yeah.
Well,
Your
'Cause it's
nacho
not.
potatoes and carrots.
It's nacho cheese. It's not
Well,
cheese.
so when I went vegan, the hardest part is we all grew up with comfort foods. So when I first went vegan, there was you have to learn how to cook because there's no if you eat all pre-made vegan, like if you buy pre-made burgers, vegan burgers, and pre-made this, you're not really eating any healthier. You know, you're just getting a lot of salt and sugar and stuff like that. So we bought a bunch of cookbooks because as much as people are like, well, then why do you eat cheese? If you know, make cheese if you're, but that's what you grew up with, you know. So like you grew up with cheese. Like I make mac and cheese out of cashews, which I would have made this past weekend, but one of Zoe's friends has like a severe allergy. But the cashew mac and cheese is wonderful, and it's just made from cashews.
But is it once again? It's not cheese.
No, it isn't. But it's one of those things. Which came first? You know, did someone make this cashew mixture, and then someone said, "Hey, look, well, if you just get this stuff out of this cow, you don't have to go through all those steps, and it tastes the same." Or is it the other way around? You know?
Well, I'm so glad, even though I know it's not cheese.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you call it cheese and not something like nut butter, because that's not gonna. That's
well, and that's the other.
People are not going to dig into a big heaping bowl of nut butter. It's not.
Well,
that has an entirely different meaning than what you're saying.
So if I'd probably get arrested for having 20 people coming over for nut butter. But the other thing with it is you try to make food like to me, I like tofu. It took me a while, but since I've been vegan, I love tofu. But to make someone who eats meat, tofu is not the most pleasant thing to eat if you're not used to eating it. So we try to make stuff that's close to what people eat. And like manwich, there's a lot of foods that are called vegan by accident. Okay. And manwich mix is vegan by accident. And then we have these soy crumbles that have a beef type flavor to them that are vegan. We just cook it there so people who aren't vegan can at least feel like they're eating something, and it doesn't freak them out. But so you know that the thing about that cheese is there's nothing unhealthy in it. It's basically potatoes, carrots, and spices with a little bit of soy milk. So you're getting your veggies in. And the first troop I did after we went vegan, we stopped at a Bob Evans. I don't even know if they're still around. They had nothing on there that wasn't vegan except for the fries. Everything had milk or eggs or cheese on it. I said to the lady, "Do you have anything without cheese?" And she looked at me like I was mental.
Did you really just like ask if Bob Evans is still around?
Yeah, well, we used to have a bunch. I don't think we have any Bob Evans around here anymore.
You can throw a stone and hit 6 Bob Evans where I'm at.
Yeah, I think most of ours closed down.
To be fair, Ohio was the founding place of Bob Evans.
True.
So
yeah,
I guess I'm a little privileged.
I didn't realize that Bob Evans started in the Buckeye State.
Mm-hmm.
Well, isn't there a place in Ohio where they test all of the fast food? There's a town in Ohio where they test all the fast food franchises. I forget the name of the town. I don't know. It's just there's like a street, and that's where if you want to start a restaurant, they start the franchisers there.
Joke's on you, Ken. I'm 5 minutes from Springfield, Ohio.
Nice. But that's why I like.
But can you get nut butter there? Can you get nut butter?
I like Decades where I took John Friday night. is because they have vegan food and regular food. So I can get a vegan food and people can get regular food.
Speaking of which, I don't think I have destroyed a burger that fast. Because all I had eaten up to that point was a single bag of, like, the self-serve bags of Lay's potato chips.
Jeez.
But it was so good. The ranch, I'm a ranch snob. Their ranch was subpar.
Well, I think they make their own. So I think it's because I've got the vegan ranch with they have vegan wings, and I don't like it either. So I'm with you on that.
It's subpar.
Ken's laughing at vegan wings.
Yes.
Listen,
It's all funny.
I worked in the restaurant business where when wings first hit in the 80s, because we used to throw them out until buffalo wings came along. Like you would cut them off and throw them. Like no one ate them. That was like poor people food, you know.
Now they're expensive as hell.
Yeah. Yeah, we should have taken you to Decades there, Ken.
Oh, I would have loved it.
Anthony was there. Anthony went there because it has an arcade and a bowling alley built in. It's the old Lancaster Armory, and they converted it to a restaurant. And it's nice because it's not crowded, and it's not one of those restaurants where the music's blaring and you got to scream at each other to talk. But they do get your food ready so fast, which is bizarre to me because they're the only restaurant where you have stuff to do, you know, and the food gets ready so quick. But
that's cool.
Missy was upset that she forgot to make you a cake, John.
Oh,
she was like, I can't believe I didn't make him a cake.
That's all right. Trust me, I had the conversation with several people at work over the last 3 days, like just randomly in conversation, like, yeah, you know, it's my birthday on Thursday. And they're like, what? I didn't even know it was your birthday.
I got my birthday removed from the school calendar at our work.
Did you really?
Yeah, because I hate that. I hate when teachers go about their birthday when you have kids that are like super poor, and then a teacher goes on and on about their birthday. You know, I'm like, yeah, you know, let the kids just not worry about that nonsense.
Yeah. I'm just not a fan of my birthday. It's any other day for me.
I'm too young to remember mine. I was too young when I was born, so I can't remember.
Of course you were.
I was in a what do they call those incubators? I was a preemie or whatever. I think in the 60s the incubator was just a big glass fish tank they stuck you in.
It was an easy bake oven.
Yeah.
Just larger.
Yeah. I had a big head. I was like a big melon head baby. Like I looked like Charlie Brown.
You were a Funko Pop.
Yeah, I was. I'm the inspiration of Funko Pop. It's a pain when I'm like when I'm building helmets and stuff. Like I'm trying to print Thor, Jane Foster Thor helmet. And I bought the file, and I hate when people don't scale their files. So I'm like, it looks okay. I print it. I'm like, who puts this on? Like it wouldn't fit a child. So anyway,
like your bringing it around back to Star Wars, just like your Micro Series helmet.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like that one, actually, I probably should do the math for tomorrow and print that one again. The Micro Series, that's well. I just remember that's a good show too. Now, do we cover all the sequels?
No.
Okay, which one are we on?
We didn't spend much time talking about Rise of Skywalker or The Last Jedi.
See, I liked what's the battle with the red sand? What's that planet?
Crate.
One of my favorite scenes in that movie is when the Falcon comes flying through and just obliterates some of the TIE fighters.
Yeah, one shot and takes out 3 of them.
Yeah.
My favorite scene on Crate was Gareth Edwards' cameo.
Oh yeah. That was
so
good. That was good.
I just love the look he gives. He gives him like, you had to taste it.
I know. Someone would though.
After the guy just walked there. I thought it was funny when Poe put his foot through the floorboard.
Yeah.
What the hell? Because all I could think of was my 1971 Volkswagen Beetle that had holes in the floorboards.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're driving her. That's the equivalent of my Space Beetle. That's what that is.
Mike was thinking about his Harrison Ford autograph during that scene.
There he went his autograph. Poe just got Han Solo's autograph like right before he got stabbed.
What the
blew
hell?
out the floor.
What do you guys
Man,
think of the foxes, the fennec foxes?
they were cool.
Mm.
Well,
I
John, that grocery store I showed you with the phone booth,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I got Harrison Ford's autograph.
Oh, that was the spot.
Yeah, in that store.
Oh.
Anyway, I took him
Yeah.
a quick tour through Intercourse. Ken's just
You should have came up the night before, man. You could have
Oh.
been a part of all the festivities.
Oh, would have been
you go into
fantastic.
Intercourse with us. You could have. Someone's just chiming in. I'm going to report this video.
Only if we could get a picture of me and Blue Ball.
I could have taken him there too. No, but yeah, I like those foxes. Like to me, the foxes showing them how to get out. That also reminded me of like George Lucas's Star Wars, where you had like the animals, like these nature beings, kind of like, and Dave Filoni's with the Purgles, the Ewoks, all that kind of stuff, which even goes back to like homage to like Lord of the Rings, where like J.R. Tolkien was building all the orcs and stuff were supposed to be the industrial. Depending on who you read, it was either the industrialization of the world / Germany taking over. You know what I mean? And so it was kind of neat that the animals kind of saved the day, kind of thing.
Well, also the idea of just slowing down long enough to pay attention to what's around you instead of like early on when Poe was rushing into battle, not necessarily thinking through his decisions or thinking through the consequences. Like, wait a minute, what's going on right here? And one thing that I've always thought about related to Star Wars is the Force. And what I mean by the Force is meaning that we're guided. Like, things happen the way they're meant to, the way that they're intended to. And if we slow down long enough, we can see that path a little bit more clearly than if we're just rushing.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice homage to the famous line of it's the Force is an energy field created by all living things. It's not just people, it's also the creatures and the aliens and the smaller animals you see throughout the galaxy.
Yep.
So in a way, that was the Force leading them out of the bunker there.
Did they have one of those foxes as a statue at Celebration? Or am I dreaming about that?
Which Chicago, maybe.
Chicago, I was thinking.
It's definitely possible.
I'm getting all my celebrations are getting mixed up. And then I got to order my tickets tomorrow.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to order tickets for London.
I'm not going to order as much as it's going to pain me not to order them. I don't see how. I don't see how I can make it happen.
I had to bring my car to the mechanics today, and I'm gonna have to bring it back next week, and I'm probably gonna have to bring it back after that too. Just brakes.
Yikes!
Brakes.
I would have put brakes on for you, dude. Yeah, I just put brakes on Missy's Jeep. So,
unfortunately, where we live, I can't do any. We're not allowed to do work on our vehicles in the parking lot.
Oh, okay.
So
you don't have a garage? Come on, man.
No.
Bring it up here. I'll put them in. I'll put brakes on for you. We have weird rules too, but like tomorrow, my plan is I'm going to pull my sign into the yard and tear the entire interior out and scrub the interior. Get its last 100,000 miles, at least make it clean inside.
Before you get the VW
bus.
bus.
Yep.
What's that called again? The new one?
It called a lot of money.
Yeah.
I don't know what they don't know anything about it, honestly. Like, I went and looked at it in Anaheim, and it was a big fiberglass shell, and it had nothing to add other than they were standing there with an iPad. Are you signed up for the email? Yes. Okay, can you tell? No, we don't know anything. This is just a prototype. Okay.
Well, that's how
they had a commercial.
That's how we were about the Lyric until like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Cadillac Lyric comes out in 2 months, and we just learned about it 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, their wiring harnesses were made in Ukraine, so that's what's throwing them off a little bit.
Huh. I thought those were like totally German built. I thought that was the whole point of Volkswagen, is that they're
I have no clue. That's, I mean, you know, unless they're like, okay, what can we say that people won't get mad that we're holding
Maybe it's a
this up?
percentage that needs to be made in Germany.
Yeah. Yeah, Germany does have some cool labor laws, like to protect their workers and stuff. But, I don't know. But unless it's a German factory, who knows? But yeah, that battle. I liked. You know what I liked too? I liked the final scene in the Falcon when you saw the rebel, what was left of the rebel cause, like kind of like this is all we got. You know what I mean?
Well, let's scoot forward a little bit before that scene and talk through Luke's appearance on the planet.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that to me, of all of the Star Wars movies, that was the biggest Jedi move possible. This idea of using the Force not to harm, not to kill, not even truly to defend, but just to
Delay.
save. Yeah, to delay, exactly.
Yep.
To distract.
Yeah.
And that exchange, that back and forth between Luke and Kylo, or Luke and Ben, I still get goosebumpy thinking about it. It was I thought it was absolutely positively fantastic. And one of the things I thought was pretty funny, even though some folks labeled it a dick move, but when people were complaining about it online, saying, "Oh, that's not a force power," or whatever, and Ryan Johnson did this series of pictures where he, showed himself at his bookshelf, pulled the book off, opened up the book, pointed to the passage, in the book, talking about that move. Like, okay, quote unquote Star Wars fan, here it is. This is for you.
Yeah.
Star Wars stuff that's been in existence for ages. Now what do you have?
yeah,
Right?
and
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
The only thing I would say, in this is my biggest gripe with The Last Jedi, and an extremely small one at that. And it's the OCD in me. It's the only of the 9 saga films where you never see a lightsaber clash with another.
Oh. Yeah.
Because the only 2 lightsaber battles you get are the Praetorian Guards, where it's Kylo and Rey.
Right.
And then Luke versus Kylo, where Luke isn't
touch.
really there.
Right. Yeah, well.
And
That's
again,
a good trivia. It's a good trivia question.
Super small gripe. And that is my biggest problem with the movie, because I don't have a lot of problems with The Last Jedi. But
Do you think Ryan Johnson was maybe too deep of a fan for some fans?
I think so. I think he did a lot of things that were subverting expectations.
Yeah.
Because
let's
he had a deeper
explore that for a
understanding of the
second.
lore.
What was that again? Say that last part. I apologize. I cut you off.
No, it's all right. I think that the subversion of expectations line gets misunderstood with, he just has a very deep understanding of the bottom half of the iceberg. He knows a lot more of the legends, the stuff that's not really canon anymore. He knows a lot more than that than your average Star Wars fan does. And I think Mikey, I think you're right. That he does know too much for some fans to handle.
Well, and with that in mind, his movie wasn't just about the flashy. It wasn't about that upper level of the iceberg that you're talking about. It was the philosophical. It was the deeply thoughtful part of storytelling. that you miss if you're only looking at the flashy, if you're only looking at the visuals, if you're only paying attention to those things, you miss the story beats. And I think The Last Jedi was probably one of the most story intense of the movies, of all of the 9 movies, really, because there were so many parts to it. You had Finn and Rose's story, you had Rey and Kylo's story, and meshing them all together in one movie. Then you had even Luke's story in all of that, and I don't think the other movies were as full as The Last Jedi.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like a snob or an elitist here, but I think that's why The Last Jedi gets a lot of hate, because it's not a surface level movie. It's not flashy. You miss a lot of the deeper meaning if you're just looking for, ooh, bright lights and pretty colors.
Well, and with that, I mean, there was a lot of bright lights and pretty colors. I mean, it was a gorgeously filmed movie. The space battle at the beginning, as much as people complained about it, it was pretty cool to watch.
Yeah.
That battle scene with the Praetorians was pretty cool to watch. And the movie wasn't about the battles. It wasn't about those big battles. It was more about those inner battles, those philosophical battles. Even now that I'm thinking about it out loud, even Poe's story in that movie was deep. He starts off being flashy and quick to action without necessarily thinking things through, and then by the end of it, he is more thoughtful. He does pause to make a decision instead of just rushing to judgment or rushing to a quick thing without necessarily thinking through the consequences. And I think that's some of the growth that many of us experience in life. Yet it just showed up on one movie that was 2 hours and 30 something minutes long.
Well, I wonder if a lot of the hate, if you reword some of the hate and you go back to when The Phantom Menace came out, I bet you a lot of it sounds the same. Because of The Phantom Menace had a lot of that, like when people started complaining about the politics, because that was a perfect parallel, like with Newt Gunray and Robert, like that was like, that was some perfect parallels, and and then look what happened now. Everyone loved The Phantom Menace. I don't know where all the people were that were hating on it, but when I was at Celebration in Chicago, there was a giant amphitheater full of people that were loving it.
Well, I think the people that were hating on it may just not be going to those events anymore, and now it is the adults who were kids when The Phantom Menace came out.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. I wonder how. I think these are going to age well. I think. I also think some of the hate for the last 2 movies comes back to what we started talking about, was the behind the scenes stuff. We know so much behind the scenes, like, oh, we know there was this guy who was going to direct it. Now this guy, and they can't find this guy, and this guy's doing this. And so then you've already got a bad taste in your mouth before you even go to see the movie, because you've heard all the, what is it, making of the sausage before you've had your sausage sandwich.
Which is really kind of funny, because when you look back at the originals, they weren't perfect films. They were. I mean, George Lucas almost died making A New Hope.
Yeah.
He had a heart attack, stress attack, however you want to describe it.
Yeah.
It did not go well for him. And then, fast forward to Phantom Menace, there was more drama on that one. They lost Qui-Gon's wig, and there was a sandstorm that ruined a lot of their stuff. And, so none of the films really went, completely smoothly.
Right.
With the exception of maybe The Last Jedi. I think The Last Jedi was probably the smoothest of all of the movies, but you don't hear a lot of the drama behind it, except that people did not like Rian Johnson's work.
Right. Which is a shame. I mean,
and I have yet to have anyone really explain to me what it is that they don't like about. So you'd use the phrase subverting expectations, John. And we can look at many of the even the Kenobi show subverting expectations. I mean, we expect Obi-Wan Kenobi to be one of these characters who does the right thing and protects people and things like that. Yet he turned his back on a fellow Jedi only to have him show up later dead, hanging in a public square. That's not the Obi-Wan Kenobi that we knew from the Clone Wars or the original trilogy. So how is that less subversion of expectations than Rian Johnson's work?
Well, or how about for that, how little Luke was in it? Like when we first saw that, we thought it was going to be about him and Luke. That poor kid just got to walk around and fly on, And
yeah, that's another wonderful example. We saw the trailer. We thought this was going to be the Obi-Wan Kenobi watching Luke Skywalker in the desert show, and it didn't turn out to be that at all.
And how likable they made Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that phrase "subverting expectations" gets thrown out a lot about The Last Jedi because people don't know what they don't like about it. Because if you think about it, just like you said, Ken, your expectations are subverted in almost every single show. Show or movie. That's the whole point. You want to be surprised. You want to see something you didn't expect. And again, Rogue One. Think of the trailer.
Yeah.
Half of those shots weren't in it. We already talked about this. Your expectations were technically subverted because you didn't see half of what you had already seen from that movie.
One thing I thought was very interesting about The Last Jedi is there were moments in the movie where I thought Rian Johnson, as the director of the movie, was talking directly to fans. So this idea of things aren't going to go the way you think they will. And if we take that line out and put it in our own life, how many parts of our life have gone the way we thought they would?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not to get too drawn into my own personal life, but I didn't anticipate living in New Jersey since 2005. There was one point in my life I thought I was going to be a teacher. There was another point in my life I thought I was going to be a fitness guru living in Southern California. There was a time where I thought I was going to move back to Australia, and none of those things happened. So my life did not go the way I thought it would. Just like, Luke Skywalker said to Rey, this is not going to go the way you think it will.
Yeah, and Ken, I told you a couple times on the Saturday, even just to go so far back as a couple days. I never expected to be hanging out with a bunch of guys building Star Wars costumes or be a part of the 501st. I never thought it would be something that I could do.
Yeah.
Yet here we are.
And some of the greatest things that have happened in our lives have been unscripted, unplanned.
Found in a Target toy store aisle.
Found in a Target toy store aisle, absolutely.
Giving out tickets to a Comic-Con.
Yeah,
there you go.
So I would love to just sit down and talk with a person who doesn't like it so much and have them really explain what it is they dislike. And not from the place where we need to debate and I need you to be converted to liking it, or I need to be converted to disliking it, but just to get a better understanding, because some of the stuff that folks complain about, you could overlay that into every movie. Yeah. So if we go back to the original movie, some folks say that The Last Jedi had some great concept art that never made it in the film. Okay. There was great concept art from A New Hope that never made it in the film.
Right.
So does that make A New Hope not a good movie? No, that they made choices and that's what ended up on screen. I don't think we should judge a movie by the concept art that was or was not used in the film. That's not the line in the sand that makes a movie great or not.
Right. Right. I agree.
Or even just the characters. So if we, this person wrote this script and that didn't make it in the movie. If we fast forward into the Rise of Skywalker, well, Colin Trevorrow's stuff was so much better. Why didn't they make that movie? They didn't. I mean, we go back to George's original drafts. Was it the Journey of the Wills or the Journal of the Wills? A lot of the stuff that showed up on paper in those original things didn't make it on screen. It doesn't make those movies less good.
Well, and also the movies, you want them timeless, but they do have to hit certain touchstones in the real world at the time. Like you could make the world's best timeless film but if it doesn't grab that first initial audience, then it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and Ken, kind of back to your point though, and it doesn't even, if you look no further than, you don't have to just look at like concept art or story beats that they didn't use from pre-production. If you could even look at some things like specific. Oh, we lost Mike.
Hopefully it doesn't go too far.
Yeah, you can look so far as like story beats they didn't use from the previous movie.
Yeah.
So like Rose Tico's character getting completely cut out. The Hobbit had more lines than Rose did, who had never shown up in a movie to begin with, had more lines than Rose. Or the line of a Jedi's weapon deserves more respect. I will say this: The Rise of Skywalker is my least favorite out of the sequel trilogy, only because it seemed like such a knee-jerk reaction to what the vocal, I call them the vocal minority, because I think a lot more people like The Last Jedi than is led on. But I think it was such a knee-jerk reaction to all the kickback that they got that just kind of overtook the story of the movie, making Rey a Palpatine as well. I mean, yes, they were nobody, but they were nobody they were actually Palpatine's, son and daughter-in-law. So,
well, and was it really his son if it was a clone of himself?
Right.
So and the other thing I thought was very, very interesting. Welcome back, man.
Yeah, sorry, I had to get a drink. I didn't want to interrupt.
One of the other things I thought was interesting about the Rise of Skywalker was JJ's efforts to really, really, really include Carrie Fisher after her passing. And I think that's a noble thing. I think it's a kind thing. And it definitely limited what could have been done. So, for instance, they actually took a scene from a deleted scene from The Last Jedi and repurposed it in The Rise of Skywalker, even changing backgrounds and all sorts of stuff. I mean, the technology use was remarkable, but because you're building a story around little bits and pieces of what was used in the previous movie, you're kind of stuck. You don't have as much freedom as if you would if you just picked up where that second movie left off and went forward with it.
Yeah. Personally, I know, obviously the three of us, we are not story writers. We're not filmmakers. I would have been better off if they hadn't used Carrie Fisher and if they would have killed her off screen, just knowing what we know now, because some of the NPC style lines that they had to use to try and work her in the story, it seemed a little uncanny valley. But at the end of the day, I will never say I am unhappy with one last performance from Carrie Fisher.
Yeah. Well, I think they did her justice by showing what she had done on screen as best they could. I mean, I would not want to be in the meeting for that decision.
Right. Well, it helps that they already had a good relationship with her daughter.
Yeah.
That she could give that okay.
Well, and the best homage to her is the girl they got to play her in Kenobi.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget Lola.
And Lola.
Yeah, and see, to me, those are wonderful touches that say to me as a fan that the people who are making these things, whether we're talking about J.J. Abrams or Deborah Chow or Ryan Johnson, they truly care about the work they're putting out there.
Yep.
They're not just slapping stuff together and putting it out on screen just to make money.
Right. Right.
And I think that was one of the biggest arguments I heard or complaints I heard when Disney purchased Lucasfilm in 2012. Oh, well, Disney's just buying it so they can make money. And that, while it's true they did buy it to make money, I don't know if the makers are overly concerned with the making money part of it. So whether you're talking about the Doug Changs or the Neil Scanlons or even Leland Chee, like I don't think that they're overly concerned about the money-making aspect of it.
Yeah, because the company, though it's owned by Disney, if you talk to any of the Lucasfilm people, it has a different philosophy in how they run their company. You know, they're not. I mean, they're owned by Disney, but they're not Disney. You know, and there's nothing wrong with Disney. I mean, you know, it's funny. George Lucas got accused of trying to make too much money. You know, when they used to make fun of him for like all his merchandise stuff, and you know.
And what's pretty funny about that, when you look at that merchandising stuff, the merchandising stuff wasn't necessarily just to fill George's pocket.
Right.
That merchandising stuff was to build the ranch. That merchandising stuff was to build the technology. That merchandising stuff was to pay for the next movies.
Yep.
I mean, he was a rebel from the beginning. I mean, he wanted to make sure he had control over the stories that he wrote, over the things that he wanted to put on screen. Those were some of the most expensive independent films ever made.
Well, you can see it in Clone Wars. You know, they put a lot of money in Clone Wars cartoons, especially the first couple seasons. You know.
Yep.
And if you listen to interviews with Dave Filoni, it started out where George would just pop in, and then eventually George was there all the time working with it. Imagine that dream job. You work at ILM or Lucasfilm, and George Lucas is working with you.
Day in and day out. And that's why I think Star Wars is in amazing hands now, because you've got the storyteller of Dave, you've got the design team of Doug and the crew, you've got folks like Matt Wood and Ben Burt. Even Phil Tippett still is involved with some of the stuff that they make. So even today in 2022, they've got some of the lifeblood that was around in 1970 something when they put these movies together. And that doesn't happen in other franchises.
If you look at Matt Wood when he went out to Lucasfilm, he looked like long-haired John. There's a picture. He posted a picture up a while ago of him, you know, in the 86, 87, or whenever he went over to, you know, Industrial Light and Magic. So I'm hoping my kid gets there somehow. I'm hoping I stay alive long enough to see her get there.
It's just a matter of time. The Force works in mysterious ways.
I hope so.
I mean, heck, look at John Knoll.
Yeah.
You know, John Knoll's story is one for the ages, one of legendary status, where he called them when he was 15 years old during a trip to California and got to spend a day in the model shop.
Yeah.
And he's the one that pitched the story of Rogue One to Kathleen Kennedy. You know, crazier things have happened in Star Wars, I think.
Well,
and I think Star Wars attracts a certain kind of fan and a certain kind of maker.
Yeah.
And whether you're talking about A New Hope or the rise of Skywalker, the creativity, the courage, the innovation, the teamwork just shows up over and over and over again everywhere you look.
Mm-hmm.
And we're living in an age where we're getting new stuff, not just every couple years. We're getting new stuff every couple quarters.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because we won't have any new Obi-Wan. I didn't look. There was no like behind the scenes Obi-Wan stuff today, was there, on Disney Plus?
No.
Okay.
In the gallery.
Yeah, I didn't see any of that. But
well, what's weird is speaking of behind the scenes stuff, there hasn't been a book of art for Book of Boba Fett either. I haven't seen a making of that yet either. They had the gallery for Book of Boba Fett, that one episode, but they haven't done the books. They haven't done the art of books for the Book of Boba Fett, which I'm surprised by.
I think they did a magazine. The same company that does
Titan.
Yeah, Titan magazine might have made a book. Now, because I went, someone, I don't know if it was Jordan or Tim Toy, one of these guys I know wanted a copy of whatever with Obi-Wan in it. So, because I never go to the newsstand, so I went to the newsstand and I saw the Boba Fett thing, and I didn't grab it. I didn't grab it because I was like, it was like $15 or something like that. I think it was Boba Fett, but it could have been. Maybe it was. There was a Mandalorian like season 1 or season 2 as well. So, but I get too many. Was it Star Wars Insider? I'm running out of space.
Well, a lot of the Star Wars Insiders available on archive.gov, and you can just download the PDFs.
Yeah.
Saves a lot of bookshelf space.
I had to get it that one. There was like a good 4 months run that one of my kids were in it every month. So I had to get those. Because the one guy wrote a story on Safi. He just contacted me one time and said, "Hey, is your daughter do 000?" Yeah. Well, what can you tell me about it? And I told him, and then he wrote a story on her. So.
See, we should send a picture of our Tusken build.
Yeah,
to Star Wars Insider.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, Mike, you got all these contacts.
I don't have any contacts that do me any good. They're only happy to see me. I don't know if they're, I got my Spider-Man shirt on for Jordan today. He's in Spider-Man mode right now.
Nice.
Now I've got my Han Solo Chronicles shirt on for Matt.
Nice. Yeah, Matt, I got to get back with him because he's trying to get a date in July.
I got my busted Kennex shirt.
Yeah, I know. You're iron on.
I didn't iron it on well, so now it's my pit Mando. He's guarding my armpit. What did you think of the Sith troopers that were in Palpatine's fortress in Rise of Skywalker? I didn't see many good pictures of them.
Yeah, they were all right, but that was one of those things I think that like that whole cult of the Sith. Like, I wonder if that movie came out now, if there would have been like a comic book explaining the cult of the Sith, or maybe there was, or maybe like a 1 or 2 shot on Disney Plus. Like, I hope the powers that be start using Disney Plus in tandem with movies. I think sometimes people think that they're competing with movies, but people still want to go to the movie theater, whether the movie companies want to admit it or not. If people didn't want to go to the movie theater, they wouldn't go because they're overpriced and you have to travel. And with the way we have TV set up now, we can stay home, but people would still rather go to the movie theater.
Look at Maverick.
Yeah, it's just an experience. And so, like, I'm hoping that they would take and make some, like, to me, Kenobi, when I saw that they were doing the last one in the movie theater, I was so pissed that I didn't live in Canada. I would have went to see it. If it even would have cost me $20, I would have went and saw it.
Yeah, there's several other reasons why I'm pissed that I don't live in Canada now, but that's different.
Yeah, well, that's another podcast for.
Yeah. That's when we'll talk about the politics of politics and not the politics of Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, I run into that occasionally because partially because I'm a teacher, I don't really use my social media as politics because as a teacher, we don't have as many rights to free speech as everyone else, So I always have to say to people occasionally, I send them a message. Look, I know how terrible or how good things are going. I just don't talk about that, on my social media part. Because, I never want to influence my job is to teach my students computer stuff. I don't want to influence them on other things. I don't want to be accused of that. Star Wars maybe, but.
Well, speaking of influence, what kind of influence do you think Rey's going to have on the rest of Star Wars?
In the near future,
Yeah.
not a whole lot. Down the line, I think I think once you get the prequel effect to the sequel trilogy, I think she'll have an Ewan McGregor or a Hayden Christensen level of influence.
Well, and I also think at Celebration, when you saw little kids in costumes, I would easily say kids under 5, half of the girls were Rey. And if they had a costume on, you know. So I think Rey is one of those characters that's going to be going exactly like John said. I think it's going to just hit, you know, because it is kind of funny. Like, I'm glad Hayden Christensen is back and all that kind of stuff. But I can tell you 4 or 5 years ago when I talked to Star Wars fans, they would still be bashing the prequels. You know what I mean? And tell me how bad Hayden Christensen was. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was just it's funny how certain people change their tune because they're just looking like they check the internet to see what they're allowed to like. And oh, look, everyone likes Hayden Christensen now, so I'm going to pretend that I really like him now, which is a terrible way to be.
Yeah.
Because I always liked him. And I remember when people complained about his dialogue, I always said he was a little slave boy raised by celibate monks. How would you expect him to talk?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I always thought George Lucas. You guys ever see Downton Abbey?
No.
Okay. Well, Downton Abbey's about like that super formal English household that has all the servants and shit. And I always thought of like the prequel era was like maybe like the 20s or 30s of our century, where there was a formality of speech, you know, like and I felt that that's where some of that came from. You know.
Yeah. And what I told you guys a buddy of mine invited me over and we watched Revenge of the Sith for my birthday.
Is your girlfriend talking to you yet? No, I'm just kidding.
But we and he had because it was the same guy I did the podcast, my podcast with. And he was like, yeah, you know, man, I can't get behind Hayden Christensen. Like the way he talks is so bad. And I think I might have changed his tune on it, because I put it to him this way. How you got to remember, this is the same character as Darth Vader. You have to at least have some of those same, I don't want to say choppy, but intentionally paused dialogue, at least somewhat put into his speech, so it's believable that these are the same character.
Right.
And if Anakin talked like you and I do, but Vader talked, you know, real menacingly and real slowly, you wouldn't believe that they're the same character.
Right.
So I think, because I always use the same thing of, you know, he was raised by celibate monks. How do you expect him to talk? I always use that excuse, but it doesn't always go over well.
He was also a man of action. If you watch the Clone Wars, they're talking about doing stuff, and he's pretty much solved the problem, you know. So, I mean, and again,
always in motion.
And, you know, if you scrutinized Mark Hamill's acting and Carrie Fisher's acting and parts of Harrison Ford's acting in the first 3 movies, like they did in the prequels, you could say the same thing about most of them too.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Good to say. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about what are you choosing to pay attention to?
Yeah.
If you're so caught up in the delivery of the lines and not looking at the story that the lines are connected to,
right,
then you're failing as a movie watcher. Like there's a story on the screen, and it's not just about the delivery. It's not just about the how the actor is saying these things. It's what do these words mean? How do they connect to the larger story? How do they connect to the stories that have come before, and or in our case now, the stories that come after it? I mean, we live in a fancy time where we have decades of Star Wars stuff, whether it's movies, comics, cartoons, novels, to enjoy and see those through lines, see those connections, and not so not spend so much time focusing on the delivery.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and again, the fans, and I hate to say fans because there's a group of people that are fans. And you can have, I don't want to like sound elitist, but there's a level of fandom. There's the people that just like the movies, and that's perfectly fine. And there's the people that are a little more into it. But then there's a group of people that just hate it all. I don't know why they still get lumped in as fans. That's my biggest gripe is because then they just get Star Wars fans chase Daisy Ridley. No, that you cannot be a fan of Star Wars and have racial hatred or gender hatred. You've missed the story.
Yes, a million times yes.
And is maybe in 1977 standards, New Hope was not as racially sensitive as it should have been, but it was more racially sensitive than any other show at the time. You know what I mean?
Well, and that wasn't necessarily one of the overarching themes of these movies. I mean, you could say that the Lord of the Rings had more focus on race than Star Wars did.
Right.
I mean, they look at how the elves and the dwarves related to each other.
Well, I always looked at when the we don't serve their kind here as a kid. I always took that as a nod to the racism in, because my grandmother came from Missouri, so she would talk about that all the time. And my grandfather worked in DC, and he would talk about how like when the train left DC, people of color had to move to the back and all this kind of stuff, And so when I saw that on screen, I thought that was him pointing that out, in a subtle way.
And the idea, with that in mind, the idea of slavery is throughout all of Star Wars.
Yep.
And I don't mean necessarily slavery from the perspective of one person owning another person. I could say slavery is one person controlling another person or one group controlling a group. So, could you say that Jedis became slaves? They became slaves of the dogma. They became slaves of the teachings that they were supposed to live by, and that loss of freedom is what led to their downfall.
Well, and maybe because I just watched it today, but in Phantom Menace, when Qui-Gon said we didn't come to free slaves, it showed how the who were supposed to be the beacons of hope and peace in the galaxy, they didn't feel like being bothered to free slaves. Like it showed a complacency. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
It showed a complacency, which then makes you just as guilty. Like they're worried about trade routes and this and that, but there's a planet full of slaves.
Well, not even just a planet full of slaves, a planet full of slaves that are controlled by a crime lord.
Right. And he goes and he even tells Watto he's going to go tell on the crime lord on him.
Yeah.
So,
and when we get into the animated Clone Wars, they worked with the crime lords at certain points. So the Jedi worked with Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, who had slaves.
Oddly enough, ironically enough, Luke Skywalker was involved in saving Jabba's nephew. Was it his son?
Yeah,
who was Stinky?
Son. It was Stinky. Rado.
Rado.
Well, I will tell you from the sequels, I did love the 2-seated TIE fighter. I thought that was cool when Finn and Poe escaped on the 2-seated TIE fighter. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really cool. Except when they made the toy, you can only fit one guy in it, which is kind of sucked.
I thought they made it big enough for two.
Not the one I got. I like that. The new X-Wings were cool. I liked that Han actually shot the bowcaster and loved it. Though I've carried more.
Which is so weird to me because how long has he known Chewbacca? And up until that, he'd never shot that.
Yeah, but Chewie barely shot it. He didn't shoot it till Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. He never fired it till Return of the Jedi. And so the old, the old lore of the Wookiees were that was like last resort. Like they weren't like overly like shooting people left and right.
They didn't need to. They could pull arms off. We've established that.
But I like that. I like that he kind of liked that. Like Harrison Ford seemed like he had a fun time being Han Solo. That's for sure.
In that film, yeah, I agree.
In that film. I'm trying to think I wish we would have seen the snow speeders. But I like that transport.
Snow speeders from The Force Awakens?
Force Awakens. Yeah, I wish we would have seen that snow speeder chase.
The one that was also a toy, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, at least we got the deleted scene of that one.
I wasn't a big fan of the Snow Trooper, though.
Really?
They were like Lord Helmety to me. Or Darth Helmet. Just a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that. I like the design. Specifically the ones on Kijimi.
Oh, okay.
The ones with the big long cape, the I don't know if they're capes or if they're overcoats.
Yeah.
But I like the look of the First Order Stormtrooper or the First Order Snow Trooper from The Rise of Skywalker.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And BB-8 I liked, though very few droid builders have been able to make a good one.
Really? That's surprising to me.
Well, because a lot of the moves he does in the movie is when it's a puppet. There's some guys that have really good ones, but the head bobbles a little bit too much because a lot of those like real tight turns he makes and stuff is the puppet BB-8. Because there was a lot of guys working on them, and they just like, I think most of them are just like, you know what, I'll build an R2 instead. But you know what you did forget to talk about in Rogue One? What? The appearance of Chopper.
Oh yeah, Chopper and the Ghost.
The Ghost and Harrison Dula was called.
And the Ghost showed up in Rise of Skywalker.
Right, yeah.
And see, I love those little things because, once again, it's connecting all of these other parts. It's connecting the animated to the live action. So I'm very curious to see who's going to show up in the Ahsoka show.
Well, I know Sabine is.
Yes, that's true. She was at Celebration, wasn't she? That actress who was going to play Sabine.
I don't know if she was. I just saw the armor. We weren't in that. We didn't get in that panel.
Okay,
that was one panel we didn't get into. I was just happy we got the Kenobi panel.
Now, wasn't this same model as the Ghost mentioned in Solo at the first Sabacc table?
Yeah, that's what he said. That's what he said he had, or something like that, because it was like a newer version of the Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the little stuff you like to hear.
Do you think Zeb and Agent Kallus will show up in the Ahsoka show?
I don't know. See, I think Zeb is going to be one of those hard characters to go from animation to live action. Because
you don't think they could Jar Jar Binks him?
Well, they did a pseudo one in Solo, or no, in The Mandalorian when they went to race to take the guy from the prison planet. That looked like his race, I think, didn't it? That he was there with or something.
Possibly. I have to go back and watch that episode.
Yeah. I just don't know. I don't know how well that's going to go for a character, because I've seen some people, and then they did a live action or semi live action one in the one Star Wars game, and they don't. I don't know. Someone will figure it out, but the ones I've seen just don't really translate well, to live action. But who knows? Because it's always the eyes. It's hard, they don't know what to do with the eyes, because those eyes are those weird balls with the little holes inside.
Yeah,
and they always try to put different eyes on them. So the best Zeb I saw was someone did 3D scan or 3D imaging of all the Ghost crew. Did you see them at Orlando? And they were basically just wearing the mask with spandex suits, and they had all the Ghost crew. It was really cool looking. I have to dig the pictures up.
The thing with bringing characters from animation to live action is there's going to be complaints. Like, they don't look right.
Look what happened to Ahsoka. It took Zoe a good 4 or 5 months to warm up to Ahsoka.
Look at
I'm still
the Grand Inquisitor.
Yeah, the Grand Inquisitor.
Cad Bane.
Yeah. Well, I like Cad Bane. Cad Bane, I think maybe it's because I have my old watch of westerns. Cad Bane went really well with me, but I was never really overly. Cad Bane wasn't one of my favorite characters anyway.
Yeah, I think it's just more so the look. People are like, "Oh, it doesn't look right. His head should be longer." It's always, actually, that seems to be a lot of the complaints. Is something needs to be longer. Ahsoka's head
Yeah.
tails need to be longer. The Grand.
Well, they did make him longer for the new show.
I did see that. They're still not quite the length.
I just think that comes down to. I just honestly, I have this set of head tails for Zoe. I don't know how the hell she's going to wear them. You know, because it's a lot of weight, and I don't know how to attach it to her head. You know,
Now-
to glue it to her head.
Which Ahsoka is she doing?
Siege of Mandalore.
Ah, that's the best Ahsoka look in my opinion.
It is, but I don't know. Like, you know,
They
those
don't
head
spirit gumming on or anything like that.
that's why she's watching the tutorials. I told her, you watch the tutorials from the woman that made it. We'll do what she says, but you know. But yeah, I mean I'm curious what they do with all of that, with all that new stuff coming. I mean, I'm sure they're going to do better than we ever thought, because I have been surprised in a good way with every television show they've done. So,
what are your thoughts on Rey using Force abilities that in the prequels we were told are dark side? So using the Force to keep people alive.
I think the dark side and the light side is really based on why you do it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think the Emperor actually said it right. You know, if one is to understand all of the great aspects of the Force, you can't just study one side.
Yeah.
And Mike, I think you're right. I think it does come down to your intentions and how you use it.
Well, and if someone believes biblical lore, right? The people were run out of the Garden of Eden. They couldn't eat fruit from a tree. It wasn't the tree of life. It was the tree of knowledge and good and evil that they weren't allowed to eat from. And then once they learned the knowledge of good and evil, they were kicked out of the garden, because that being or God didn't want them to know the knowledge of good or evil. So then they kept them from the tree of life. So that might be where that dogma comes from, you know, because where there's no knowledge, there's darkness, you know, and I think what made the Jedi susceptible to the prophecy and to believe it without any, like, not knowing what they're doing really, was they didn't know everything, but they thought they did. And that's the biggest problem, is not that you don't know everything, but the people that think they know everything are usually the worst kind of people. But yeah, because Baby Yoda did it.
Yeah, and that's where I'm kind of going. The interesting thing about Baby Yoda is that even though he was 50 years old, we don't know how much quote unquote training he had at the Jedi Temple. And so he used the Force to keep Grief Karga from dying. And then you saw Rey use it to keep the snake from dying and to keep Ben from dying.
Yeah.
And then Ben used the same thing to keep Rey from dying.
Yeah. Well, but she did a selfless act. You know, she did a selfless act trying to save him without, you know, it's anything. It's like, you can give money to the poor. If you give money to the poor so you get accolades for helping the poor, that's way different than someone just anonymously giving money to the poor. They're same action with the same results, but they're done for two different reasons.
So it's the intention?
I think so. I mean, the part of the reason why, like, I always liked the girls trooping in the 501st was it was anonymous charity. You know, they were doing charity of whatever kind, and no one knew it was them. You know, they were just two Jawas rolling around.
Unlike the folks who have their name plastered over the the banner, Ken's cosplay corner.
Yeah. Well, when we used to get our cards made, the old cards when I first joined, you never got your real name put on the cards. It
was
would
just
just
your
be
TK.
TK5351, and on the back it would just have a little info about the Stormtrooper. And it might say TK5351 troops with his daughters who are Jawas DZ99 and whatever, you know what I mean? But you would never have your real name on it.
Gotcha.
Not
Mike,
that
I
this
hate
works.
that. I hate that I've got your TK number memorized.
Oh,
And when we get off, when we're not live anymore, I'll tell you why.
okay. Well, it's on my sleeve of my shirt. So at school it says TK5351, and I never tell my students what it means. It drives them nuts because I have Karita polo shirts I wear for work every day.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know. That's a good sequel sum up. I think. Like
Yeah, I think that's the
would like
most
to
we've stayed on topic throughout the last 4 months.
Ken kept us on topic, but
Yeah.
I would like to see more with Lando and those people that were like that, the lost ship kind of people, you know. Like to me, would be a good series is that girl that Lando was talking about.
Mhm.
Wouldn't it be a neat series? I don't know if it would hold people's attention, but if all those people tried to reunite the kids with their families, you know, like somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I still want a kung fu type show too. I still want the old 70s kung fu show.
Well, do you think that's part of where they're going with Mando?
Maybe.
Because Kung Fu was also kind of sort of like Lone Wolf and Cub,
Yeah.
you know, where they were wandering around
Set in the
as
West.
set in the West kind of thing, doing either good deeds or, you know, just being on adventures or whatever.
Yeah. Similar to the Incredible Hulk TV show.
Yeah.
Remember that? It would always have that sad music at the end. And he'd have to back then.
And you have to hitchhike
you
through the
hitchhike.
rain.
Now, like when you say hitchhiking, people are like, "What? What's hitchhiking mean?" Don't you just get your cell phone and call somebody? Call an Uber?
Why can't you just Uber yourself to the next town?
Yeah.
Speaking of the Mandalorian, I'm shocked we haven't gotten the trailer online yet. I would have put money on at least a month after Celebration. We would have gotten that trailer.
I think I bet you we'll get Andor first.
Probably.
Another one?
No, but I
Or
think
the show first.
I think Andor is going to be their big push because I think Andor is going to be big, but I think Andor is one of those ones that if I was a Disney like worker person, Andor would be the one I'd be the most scared of because to them it's been so far removed. You know, Rogue One is the second show that the second movie that came out. That seems like so long ago.
Yeah.
You know, and
we're
from
gonna
there,
have 3 months of Andor.
mm-hmm. And then a second season,
Right.
2 seasons only, and it's done.
I hate that they keep doing that. That they keep capping because the Mandalorian was only supposed to be 1 season.
Yeah, well, the Mandalorian, I think they were hedging their bets based on just the backlash from all the others. I think they were worried that all the backlash from the sequels was going to flow into everything.
Well, the sequels, and as amazing as this is going to sound, the quote unquote bomb of Solo.
Yeah.
Which I still do not understand how Solo gets categorized as a bomb when it made $400 million.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so that's I think if they're scared, which I don't see why, because the trailer and everything was awesome, but it's just one of those things where you're probably not going to have any Jedi in it. Maybe you might have Obi-Wan, possibly, but they can't overuse Obi-Wan in it, you know. So we'll see.
Well, is the rumor true that they're doing a Fallen Order show with Cal Kestis?
I heard that, but no one. I asked Zoe, and she told me she didn't know if it was verified yet.
Okay,
it's not verified, but it's from a fairly credible source.
Yeah. The only bad part about some of those credible sources is they tend to use other sources that aren't too credible sometimes. That's
Right.
that's when it's a slow Star Wars day. You got to be careful in some of those sources.
So, where do you think the connections will be between these live action shows and the Bad Batch to the sequel trilogy? Because I think those are in need of formation.
Yeah, I don't know. See, the sequel trilogy with the Bad Batch, I think that's, if we see any connections, I wouldn't be surprised if that's in book or comic book form. Like that one clone that was frozen that you just hear about off screen or something and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, the Bad Batch is kind of weird because I still think for the animated stuff, if they get the numbers, they'll just keep making more. Because that's easier to make in the sense once you have the models built, because they were never talking about making all this Bad Batch, and all of a sudden it was such a hit. So,
and then of course they changed the armor just to piss off guys like us.
Yeah. It looks good though.
It does. It looks so good. I wish they would have stuck with the red, not the orange, but
there is a whole generation that's their Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Rex has more screen time than Luke Skywalker. If you add up all his screen time, on the television.
And that's the other thing is when you really come down and think about it, there's more minutes of animated stuff than there is live action stuff, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah,
100%.
And we can't forget, or we shouldn't forget to talk about droids and Ewoks, because that was animated stuff too.
Yeah,
that does exist.
I mean, Boba Fett was a speed racer in Star Wars droids.
Yeah, which could come back. He could. I would like to see Boba Fett in Bad Batch.
I think it's more likely than not.
Yeah, because I just because you would think they seek out other clones, and you have Omega who's unaltered and Boba Fett who is unaltered.
Well, do you think Omega could show up in live action Boba Fett?
He could. I mean, the thing, like I said to Zoe, like when they were fighting Vader in Kenobi and they cut the helmet, on the one side, and she was like, "Oh, it's just like they did in Rebels." And I said, part of that is we know it, but there's a large percentage of people that will never watch the animated shows. So they kind of take some of the good stuff that we liked, and they try to, I don't want to say crowbar it in, but fit it in so other people get to see it as well. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like to us, we're like, oh, well, it was the other side. But to some other people, like, wow, that's cool. They got his helmet cut.
Well, and it also does connect to the other stuff. So when we saw Vader have his helmet removed in Return of the Jedi, he had that big scar on the one side under the helmet. And now this has the potential to be the answer to that. Like, how did he get that big scar? Because he didn't. He did have it. John did show us that picture the last time.
Yeah.
On Mustafar.
Well, there was someone on TikTok complaining that lightsabers aren't used for stabbing. They were complaining about that. Like, and so one guy took all the clips.
They were.
I know, but someone took all the clips of from Empire when Vader got stabbed in the shoulder, because they were like, look, if they got hit in the shoulder, arm would be good. And someone took all the clips of that and all the clips from the prequels and stuff like that. Because people just like what they want to like stuff without facts, And if someone just wants to, if you just want to if Empire Strikes Back's your favorite movie and everything else is going to be crap to you, that's fine. But don't just do a podcast about why you like Empire. You don't have to throw under all the other stuff you don't like, And
I will say this though, Obi-Wan did kind of use the lightsaber in episode 4, I think it was. It was kind of used like a wiffle ball bat when he was whacking at the 2 stormtroopers that were guarding Leia.
Oh yeah,
well, he kind of just whacked one of them with it. I thought
Right.
the scene still looked fantastic. So,
But they're getting some of that storyline in the sense that, like, how they do things. Because I think of, like, if I was building battle droids, let's go to the prequels. Why wouldn't you have them censor 360 degrees? Like, why would you just put eyes on the front?
Mhm.
How many times did they sneak up on battle droids? Like, wouldn't you just be like, hey, you know what? Let's spend the extra $30 and put a set of eyes in the back. You know what I mean? So, like, if people start tearing this apart, I mean,
Well, that's the funny thing. None of it holds up. I mean, we go back
right.
to the first movie. There was a giant space bear dog that flew a spaceship.
Yeah.
And if you can believe that, if you're okay with that, then you should be okay with everything else.
Right.
Because everything else is equally ridiculous.
Yep.
I have said this forever. Star Wars, if you were to ever look up suspension of disbelief in a dictionary, Star Wars should be the poster child for it.
Yes.
Because none of it exists. None of it is
It's all
real.
fake and it's in space.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, like, Rogue One, when you're talking about it, what I liked about Rogue One was, and I read somewhere years ago that the Emperor was so happy with, like, taking over the world with the droids, taking over the universe, that when he built the Empire, he made everything overly redundant, so droids couldn't take over his stuff. So the reason why you see them pulling all those switches to fire the Death Star, he wanted everything overly redundant. Does that make sense? Like, he didn't want anything automated. He wanted to just push a button and something worked, because he didn't want someone to sneak in and be able to do that, or someone to send a droid in to do that. And that's why he didn't like droids on TIE fighters. He had the Russian mentality of quantity over quality. You know what I mean? Send 1,000 TIE fighters. They don't need shield generators. They don't need navigation equipment. Just send 1,000 TIE fighters and 10 X-Wings will be fine.
Well, and it was also kind of the equivalent of droids. Like, the people are meaningless to me.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to protect the individuals. Your job is to do this thing, and if you perish, okay, we got.
Well, that's why the Imperial logo is basically a cog. You're just a cog in the machine.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
I think it's even called the cog, isn't it? Is it called the Imperial?
Yeah, it's the Imperial cog. So,
God, I love this franchise. There is so much to unpack.
Well, so I told Zoe, I don't know what her next podcast is going to be, but I always give her ideas. She never listens to them, and it's usually pretty good without me. But I told her, I said, you should do an episode on how Star Wars has changed your life in the last 7 years, because it'll be her 7-year anniversary of her podcast this fall. And when they started, they used to do a lot more updates on each other, and tell what they were doing and stuff like that. And I said, you should do because when her and Lizzie first started talking at 14, Lizzie was like, I want to be a chef and eventually work at Disney. That's what Lizzie was saying at 14, right? Zoe was like, I want to go to film school and eventually work for Lucasfilm, 7 years ago. And so I want him to go over and like, talk about what's...
While we're not doing their podcast for them, I mean, think about the incredible stories that they have over those 7 years because of Star Wars.
Yeah, and besides, they met. Like, I met Sal because I asked for some help on a Sabine costume, because it was one other woman and his wife were the only Sabines in the world at the time. And so I asked him some questions, and then we were just talking. I was like, hey, my daughter's doing a podcast. Would Lizzie want to be on? Lizzie misunderstood and thought Zoe was like 5, and jumped on the podcast. And their first episode together they were talking for like 5 hours, and they became like fast friends. Wow. We deleted Zoe's first 3 episodes and just restarted the podcast as their dual podcast, because it was just so interesting to me to hear them talk. And they went through all the rough times of high school and beginning college and, all that stuff. And Zoe still gets a podcast out when she's working 137 hours in 2 weeks. So I don't know how the hell she does that. It's getting her ready to work on movie sets.
Well, I think our show also illustrates a wonderful thing about it. As much as we talk about it, there's so much more. There's an unending amount of things that you can discuss related to this set of movies and books and comics and cartoons and toys.
Well, and Ken, I met you because of Zoe. Because she wanted to go to that Mando party. And I was like, God damn it, I got to drive to Philly. So I was like, well, I might as well just stay here. And that's how I met you. You were set up in the one spot, and I was set up right next to you, I think.
Right next to each other. Yep, working on Kennick's shoulder bells, and I don't remember if I had my helmet with me or not.
I think I was molding coins and mythosaur skulls. So
I think you may have had the retaining bolt with you, or the retraining bolt.
Yeah, that's it. The retraining bolt.
Yeah,
it could be a retraining bolt
or restaining bolt.
Oh, restaining. Well, it does stain your droids.
Yeah,
you mean the restraining bolt?
Yeah, no, but it was misspelled in the Arabish.
Yeah,
was it really?
It was missing a letter. I can't remember which letter.
In the one file. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, that man. That was how long ago was that, Ken?
3 years ago.
It had to be longer. Because Zoe's
was it 2019?
Maybe. I can't remember if she was in college or high school when we.
I think she was in college.
Okay, so she just started college. I think she just started college.
I thought so because one of the armor parties, I think she was driving
on the train.
Back, taking the train. That's what it was. Because I think what would happen is Frank would pick her up at the station. And bring her.
But I think the first one we met was the summer after her senior year, before she went to college. Because
so was that 18?
I think she graduated in 19. I think it was 19. Okay, so summer of 2019. It was the summer before COVID hit. When COVID hit, 20. COVID hit
February, March of 20.
Yeah. So, because what she lucked out with, she had a hard start of college because I don't know. She just had a hard, and her first weekend she got to go to Keystone Comic-Con. They wanted her to be the host of the animated panel. So she got to host the guy that plays Zeb and his wife, and I forget the other guy's name who does a lot of voices for Lucasfilm. Zoe got to be the host and got to be like the moderator of them. She was like in heaven. And then 2 weeks later, I think the Mando Mercs went to Harrisburg and presented her with her membership. Remember that?
I wasn't there for that. I remember
that was a good one. That was like, I will always have a special place in my heart for the Mando Mercs and Frank and all of them for doing that for her, because that was just a perfect way to start her college out. Because I think sometimes we forget, like she's so good at doing things, like she's so good at schoolwork and work, and I sometimes forget that she does a lot of scary things, and she never lets you know when she's a little scared about stuff. It's just her, she gets that from me, I think.
Yeah, and I think the Pennsylvania group interacted with Tom, the guy who founded or formed the Mando Mercs, to get to be able to present her stuff live at that event.
He was really nice, man. He said some suggestions, but then he said, but because of what you've done for the fandom, we'll let you in. So it's just overall is a good group. So
and I think we're starting to see more of that goodness show up, and I don't know if it's a matter of because the badness isn't growing. They're not attracting more badness. That at least in the New Jersey and the Pennsylvania groups, there are definitely more folks who have a desire to help, have a desire to lend a hand, have a desire to offer suggestions instead of crushing and excluding. Yeah, there's been some times where I've met some folks at some of these events, and I've said to myself, and Heather on the way home, like, I never want to talk to that person again. Like if I never see that person again and never interact with them again, I will be perfectly fine.
Yeah. I mean, I know our garrison has a ways to go before we get to that perfect balance of that, but it is always makes me happy when I see new members coming in, and it just, like you said, it's, because I know me and Marty we have way too long of conversations about the 501st, but I'm a believer in, because the guys in Maryland want me to just join there, because I'm not far from Maryland, and I was like, if I leave Pennsylvania, then I'm like giving it to the people that I don't want to have it, like that's my thing. So, but I guess we'll call it, and I got to hear why John knows my TK5351. But I think what do we got? Like, it's a short one tonight, but not too bad. I think we did pretty well with the sequels, right, Ken?
I think so. I mean, there's tons more we could talk about, but
so what's coming
up? Hopefully, we didn't scare Ben away. Hopefully, we didn't upset him. And
I know. I hope not. But what's coming up on your podcast?
So our next episode is going to be a Kenobi recap.
Nice.
Yeah, and we had talked before. I had mentioned to them the possibility of doing an episode all about Obi-Wan Kenobi, and this was before the show came out, because I think Obi-Wan Kenobi as a character has so much depth and just opportunities to talk. I thought Obi-Wan Kenobi was, as he had developed from what we saw on screen in 77, there's so much tragedy and loss and humanity in that character. He's one of those characters that has absolutely positively grown on me, even though I thought ever since I was a little kid that I was named after him.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
But instead of, yeah. Well, when I was a kid, people would call me Kenny. Mm-hmm. And in school, they would often use your first name and just your last initial. So I'd often hear Kenny B, and I mistook that for Kenobi.
That's funny.
So I thought I was named after Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Cool. John, what's coming on the best card bucket? Anything?
Waiting on Jess to rewatch, because he wants to rewatch the original trilogy, so they're fresh in his mind. So waiting on him to rewatch them, and then gonna get his first time take on the original trilogy. And nice. Then at some point I'm also gonna do a Kenobi recap, just a solo episode, just something short for filler episodes.
Well, speaking of filler episodes, what if you got the three of us? If we got Anthony, Mike, and myself, having you moderate that conversation on celebrations,
right?
Yeah, that's a good feeling. Get Marty was at the first celebration, and he has like pictures, which I'd love for him to post up, but they're in like a picture album.
What's that?
I know, right? Yeah, I'm mainly going to work on trying to get our stuff up onto Anchor and up to the different things. So,
have you been able to talk to Colin about bringing CredaCast back?
I talked to him, and he's going to get back to me. So, okay. He's working like a madman, and I forgot that he moved out towards Gettysburg.
Oh, okay.
So, because he used to live like 15 minutes from here, but now he moved to Gettysburg. So, I'll talk to him and see what's up.
Well, if you guys need a guest from time to time.
Yeah, I think with him, it's right now because of he works sound. He's a sound guy, and I think he gets gigs where like he was on a cruise ship for a while. You know what I mean? Like it's that kind of stuff. So, like he could probably come and fix my soundboard in like 5 minutes, but now he lives far away. He'd be like, you shouldn't have that plugged in it, because I'm just plugging stuff in until it sounds right. So I don't know what these levers do, but it looks cool to move them and turn dials. So here I'm gonna hit end stream, and I got to hear this. Hang on.